Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the newest online goon theater for debate perverts, the Marketplace of Ideas. I'm your host, Kyle Smith, and joining me, as always, is a man who crawls out from underneath of the pile of the public forum with the hairiest of rhetorical hands, James No Lube Vagabond.
My God, what an introduction that just is utterly melting my brain from what we're here to do today, which is we're trying to create a better discourse in the world. We're trying to rebuild the marketplace of ideas and build a space where people of differing backgrounds and beliefs can work together to build a union of mankind and a more free and equitable society. Like Kyle said, I'm your host, James Vagabond, and we're very happy to have you here today. We've got some excellent conversations to have before you today. First off, we're going to play some games with our wonderful guests, Counterpoints and Ryan Mullally. And we've got a game called Straw Man, Steel Man, which we're going to have our guests. We're going to read some prompts for our guests we hope that they'll disagree with, hopefully severely, and that it'll be their job to give their best faith interpretation of where that belief comes from. And then we're going to go into an essay I've written. Last week we had Wick TV here on the Marketplace of Ideas, and we were trying to celebrate liberal values. That is core to my personal politics, and we were not ideally prepared, and it went off the rails. And then Wick found out that I identify as a communist.
Well, let's be honest. What happened is I threw you under the bus, and this actually all started when Ryan came onto our show. Ryan, I don't know if you remember, but when you were on our show the first time, I was a bit of a non-factor because I was recovering from a terrible illness. And when James alluded to his communist leanings, you rightfully got upset, and I no-sold the whole thing. I had no response whatsoever, and ever since then I've made it a mission to call out James's communism so that everybody knows that I disavow. I'm not a communist. He is. Is this the way? Yes.
Wait, no, up and to the right on my screen. It's different on everybody's screen.
So damn it.
But so look, it's very important to shame communists. So I'm glad you did that. That's based. And also, it is hilarious to hear someone who identifies as a communist want to have a show championing liberal values, which, if properly understood, are completely antithetical to communism. It's like having an arsonist who likes to hold fire safety events. You kind of question why he's doing it at a certain point. But, hey, glad to be here. Good to see you again, guys.
Well, we have the perfect team to help stress test this with Ryan. And, of course, there's Counterpoints ready at the gate to tear into James's philosophy. But we're not going to do that for too long because we also have another game planned for after that. Personal favorite of mine, probably my proudest achievement, a game called Podcaster, Prisoner, President. We're going to be sorting some folks into those respective categories, much as the game Fuck, Marry, Kill goes, but without the gooning. And we will, of course, be taking call-ins. So if you'd like to join in the conversation a little bit later, we've got a Discord link that we've hopefully passed around. People can join into the Discord server and hop into the waiting room if you'd like to talk to Counterpoints and Ryan with us. We've also got a YouTube channel where we are streaming. If you would be so kind as to hop over from either Counterpoints or Ryan's or stream, wherever you are coming from respectively, and hit a like on this video. And if you're feeling generous, maybe give us a subscribe. It would really help us stand out in the algo. While we're saying streamerly things, Connor, Ryan, do you have any streamer things that you'd like to say?
What have you guys been up to this week?
Yeah, mostly wholesome, productive things. But I was gonna say, like, one of the things that was really funny today was we had a conservatarian bro jump into our chat, and he's a friend of mine, and he was like, "Oh, all these liberals and leftists and communist simps." And then I actually did do a poll of how much of my chat hates socialists or communists. but they're all liberal, so they're all nice. So they're like, we don't hate the people, we hate the ideology. But then when I rephrased it for hating the ideology instead of the people, we pulled at like 80%. Like 80% of the people were like, we don't like
not
leftism.
just disavowing it, but hating it.
Right.
Not
So
just,
I was
believe
pretty
it is
proud
an
of that
enemy.
number.
Yeah,
because if
great
anything,
job.
my criticism of the left wing at this point is that they're too friendly to socialists and communists. I think we're guilty of that because we're hanging out with James, obviously. But
No, well,
we can.
I think I will
We're here to
rectify
grill
that
them a
today.
little
I think I'll
bit. So I
rectify
think
that.
we're actually
I'm
doing our
one of the good
civic
ones.
duty.
No,
This
I'm
will
one of
be
the good ones. Okay,
That-
there's no
that-
wall in my communism. I promise you.
that's based, Connor, because like one of my overwhelming criticisms of modern liberalism is that they incorrectly paired you want a government that won't restrict individual rights unduly with this terrible idea, and we the people should then be infinitely permissive of bad ideas. And when someone says something idiotic like I'm a communist, we shouldn't shame them because like all ideas are created equal and it's just my opinion, bro. It's like no. In order to maintain freedom, you must drum out bad ideas and shame people with bad ideas. Otherwise, you need government force to impose order. So because I'm in order to maintain our shared liberty, I will shame James tonight at every opportunity. So that's and I'm Ryan Mullally. You can find me on Natural Law with Ryan Mullally, where I say base things like that with some regularity.
Beautiful. Before we continue, somewhere in the technology chain, somebody's trying to keep James from talking because apparently, James, we're not getting your voice through the stream, is what I'm being told.
Incredible. Okay, so that's the newest one. All right. Wow,
Hey,
I can hear him
almost
right now.
made it.
No,
I think we're all
hear him.
good. It's just a matter of the folks who are watching on our YouTube stream, which is coincidentally where most people aren't. So we're probably good for the most part. But seeing as how we're trying to do things properly, we may as well make sure that our 3 viewers
grabbed a different mic. Okay, we'll fix that real quick. Properties default.
And while that's happening,
Boom.
I think
Boom, we're back. I'm back. Fix it.
beautiful.
Quick.
Excellent.
Boom.
Well, just in time for the first item of the day, we're going to be doing a small retrospective on the conversation that you two have been having, which I've been watching for some time. It's been pretty interesting. We've got a game that involves straw manning and steel manning various positions, and we have
Before you
catered
bring it
it.
up, Kyle, let's discuss a good summary of what they've been discussing. Basically, Counterpoints is a Burkean conservative, and to sum it up very quickly, Ryan thinks that's just a progressive with going the speed limit, so to speak. Right? Is that a good summary?
I can do a little better. I think that if I'm going to plug something, if you haven't seen it, Justice Thomas gave a really good speech recently, and I reacted to it on my channel. Go watch it. But what the theme of that speech is that properly understood, America is supposed to be progressing towards the values of the Declaration of Independence. Progressivism seeks to progress beyond those values. So Connor and I agree on the value of Burkean conservatism to the extent it is weeding out bad ideas on the path to achieving our shared values, American values. Where we disagree is what should conservatives do when they detect, or if they have detected, as I believe they have, that the modern progressive values are not actually progressing towards that. They're veering. They're zigging when they should have zagged. And what do you do then when people are actually not doing American values? They're doing something completely different. And I think that's kind of where we landed at the end of the last one, which was a useful hermetic for me in conversations going forward.
Connor, does that seem about accurate?
It does. It does. I think probably the thing that we're going to get hung up on in our next conversation, I don't know if this ruins the game at all, but effectively, I think we're going to be stress testing the truth claims of various ideas. So for instance, like, Ryan has said, like, we have these, we can identify these ideals as American because they're espoused and understood in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. And we also have the founding fathers and also the people who, have progressed our government over the past 200 years. And then I think that we kind of landed on around 125 years ago, around 100 years ago, there was in his own words, we zagged when we should have zigged. And so we've been on a path of zagging for the past 100 years that I accept as a part of the American federal government, whereas he's saying, no, this is a bad path that we've gone down. We need to actually cut this back and, go either we need to zig back towards the correct direction, or we actually need to backtrack and zig. Correct direction.
And it's interesting because, and if you guys haven't watched it, anyone in chat, which I can't imagine with me and Connor on here, you guys haven't, but if you haven't, go watch them. They're good videos. But I think if we're extending maximum charitability to each other, this single issue is like 80% of our disagreement on modern politics. Because, if you perceive this as a huge issue, then you would be more willing to accept some stuff you don't like to fix it. Whereas if you don't perceive this as a huge issue, then the stuff that you don't like might outweigh the benefits of rolling back, what I would call progressive policy. So I think this is kind of the heart of some of Connor and my political disagreements. But anyway, go watch the videos.
Before
no
we're
more
too
summaries
good
for you.
faith to step on what we're about to do. Let's get right into it, Kyle.
Sure. We're going to. It sounds like you've reached a point of nuance and good faith with your conversation. We're not going to do anything with that. This is as if somebody had a cursory understanding and was giving the least charitable interpretation of your ideas as possible. This is a game that we like to call Straw Man, Steel Man.
Straw Man.
Steel Man. My God, the production gets better and better every episode. All right. We've got here 2 straw man claims, one for each of you. And I'm going to ask that the chosen guest would read the stated straw man, give your best steel man of that position, and then say what you actually believe.
We're going to start off with counterpoints here.
All right. So, counterpoints, if you could. Hopefully this is readable for you.
It looks like it so far.
Perfect. Well, how about these words? Oh, these words.
I got triggered before I even read it.
Perfect.
Edmund Burke was just a progressive driving at the speed limit of societal change, LARPing as a conservative because he understandably hated the French.
All right, take it away.
Statement. Sorry. So, did you want Ryan to steel man that, or
No, it's your job. Unfortunately,
this is for you. The Burke, the self-described Burkean conservative. Please, if this was to be your position.
So am I calling out and trying to steel man my own position, or am I trying to steel man that criticism of my position? Because I could actually do either.
If you could steel man this claim first and then say what you actually believe.
Okay. So let me read it one more time. Edmund Burke was just a progressive driving at the speed limit of societal change, LARPing as a conservative because he understandably hated the French. That's actually that's okay. It's not the worst thing I've ever heard. Now, I would say that Edmund Burke is considered the father of political conservatism. And what I would say, one of the frustrations that I've heard characters like Sargon of Akkad, Andrew Wilson, a few other dissident right-wing philosophers articulate, is the fact that if you accept the Burkean observation of political history, that progressives are here to progress and conservatives are here to conserve, but ultimately the progressives are the only ones coming up with ideas, then you effectively set up a dynamic in which we only ever move leftward. And leftward meaning, at least in the right-wing, left-wing context of the French Revolution, towards the people and towards democratic rights and or democratic thought processes, egalitarianism, equality, et cetera, et cetera. And what Sargon and Andrew Wilson have both complained of is that when you accept the Burkean conservative dynamic, effectively you're holding on to a diminishing defensive fortification that's being chipped away by leftists, and you're constantly conceding more and more territory over time, whereas you're not forwarding a positive vision of the future. And part of the things that dissidents, dissident right-wing folk, particularly Christian nationalists and neo-monarchists, is they say, no. we reject the paradigm that conservatism is an ever increasing series of retreats of institutions throughout the millennia towards a left-wing goal. We actually want to posit our own positive vision of the future. And also these things, regardless of left-wing criticism, are true. And we will not concede an inch on these topics. And so I think, unfortunately, Burke has some stuff to say about that as well. But I do understand I'll try to shut up, I promise. But I do understand the criticism that if you accept the dynamic of Burke, then you're effectively allowing your conservative fortification to be eroded by the winds and waves of progressive criticism.
Now, Ryan, I want to acknowledge that was not your claim at all, to be clear. But having heard Connor just give his response, do you feel that that was a sufficient steel man of not your claim?
Of not my claim? Yeah. I think it was pretty good. I think it was pretty good.
Right.
Oh,
on our end.
Sorry, goddamn Discord. Yeah, I think that was a pretty good. I think that was a pretty good steel man. I think my criticism has that directionality element to it that I was talking about earlier, where it's the idea is like I'd give myself some credit, maybe a little bit more sophisticated than the one Sargon champions, for example, which is that like if we're progressing towards the noble goals of the Declaration and the left veers this way and starts doing this, that's not progress, right? Whatever that is, that's not progress. And just because it happened historically doesn't mean the right needs to tolerate it. But I think more or less we agree. We've hashed this out. So yeah, good steel man.
Alrighty.
Excellent. Well, I hope you're ready for
Connor. Did a good bit of giving both sides of his beliefs on that. So yeah, we can move to Ryan's round.
Beautiful, Ryan. Here, this one is for you.
Natural law is just social science with capital letters in order to avoid the fact that natural laws are unprovable. In the end, it's just a presuppositional club that's just as unjustified as every other social theory. Oh, so you didn't have Peace Code join? Because you had him write the prompt.
I managed to come up with that one. We've been having the real conversations behind the scenes here. Just because you haven't drained me of my socialism and communism yet doesn't mean that my ears and brain aren't open to good ideas. So I've been digesting the natural law argument over the last few weeks since I've met you, and I've learned a lot. It's been great. So I was able to learn just enough to try and trigger you with this question.
Well, I mean, the thing about this, it's I hope I'm sufficiently triggered, but like the reason that I might not be is that I think I actually, this is a very common phrasing of my position that I get said to me quite often, because it is very common, particularly on the political left and particularly in atheist circles, which is a pretty good Venn diagram with the political left, to kind of take the view that like to adopt moral anti-realism, adopt moral subjectivism. There are no such things as moral values, and as a result, there is no such thing as natural law. That's a pretty common position. And when they say it, it actually, jokes aside, it actually sounds quite a lot like this. Your view is one amongst many, so why would your view be privileged in any way compared to any other view?
Alrighty, and then you can tell us what you actually think about that. Unpack that and defeat it.
It's absolute nonsense. It's nonsense philosophically. The idea that we as human beings do not have an intrinsic sense of right and wrong, that there aren't values that are human universal, is belied by the experience of every parent who's ever raised a kid in human history. So it's kind of an armchair internet take. But beyond that, even if you disagreed with it, you would be obligated as an American to buy into the noble lie that it's true, because our country was literally founded on the premise that there are such things as unalienable rights, that we do have an equal moral worth and human dignity. And if you're going to start saying, I don't believe in equal human worth and moral dignity, well, then I'm not the un-American one. So, I think this is a terrible position, but a pretty common one.
Yeah. Connor, acknowledging that that is not the claim that you made, do you feel that Ryan has made a sufficient steel man?
Oh, now we got counterpoints.
You're muted, buddy.
Believe
You
it's
got
on
yourself muted
Discord.
in Discord.
Yeah, you're
Just
muted on
Discord.
Discord.
Yeah, Ryan, you might be onto something with this whole Discord.
No.
problem.
It's that was my fault. I was trying to make sure that you didn't hear any awkward breathing or drinking sounds while you were actually speaking extemporaneously. So, no, that was my fault. I think that it sufficiently describes the gulf in the two positions. But then I think this is actually something that Ryan and I are struggling with conversationally as well. Is if it's true and it can be destroyed by the truth, then in my opinion, it should be destroyed as the truth. That's actually kind of like a rooting in the concept of like logos, like spoken truth in reference to like Christian philosophy. And so that's where, for me, if we have a presuppositional argumentation chain of like, which by the way, I believe in a creator God, but let's say you have to believe in a creator God in order to infer these moral positions. And then once these moral positions are inferred, then we arrive at the American project. Well, with an increasingly secularizing population, I admire Ryan's project. I'm worried that with an increasingly subjective, morally arbitrary, nihilistic population, he might be fighting a losing battle. And so that's not something we have to reconcile here today, but effectively he articulated the differences in the arguments, but I'm worried about how they play out politically in our modern zeitgeist. And that's actually my biggest thoughts as I'm hearing him articulate those different views.
Well, and this is ultimately the question, right? Because if you listen to people on let's call them the dissident left or dissident right, the thing they have in common is that they would like to replace these values with their own. And the idea there is that, if you say like, okay, if these values fall, if American values fall, then it's an open season. Whoever wins gets to decide what the values are next. And I think that I don't think that ends well. I think that you're not going to find a better set of values. I think that these are, and you should be suspicious of that. Because if somebody starts with the claim, you say, I believe humans have equal moral worth and dignity, and they say, that's presuppositional nonsense, that you might then be suspicious that they're about to sell you some kind of utopian horror show that's going to end in the death of 100 million people or so. I'm not sure if you guys are history buffs, but there's some precedent for that.
It happened a few times. Now, of course, we don't want to backpack off of the conversation that you will eventually continue on one of your own respective channels. We do have one more garbage claim for each of your positions, if you would be so kind as to indulge us here. One more straw man each. And no, I don't want to save this. Perfect. Okay. This time, we'll start with Ryan, if that's all right.
Sure.
Your straw man here is as follows.
You don't have to read the expletive, sir.
Oh, I'll read it. I'm delighted to read it. I think I made a couple of videos making fun of Connor for this. People are too fucking stupid for liberty, so we need government to guide them towards positive outcomes and protect them from their own ignorance and vices. I think this is it dovetails perfectly off our previous conversation. To steel man.
Wait, hold on. You can't say this is a straw man if this is actually a direct quote from me. This might actually just be.
Yeah, this is
like I don't even think he's.
Yeah,
this isn't even a straw man. I've said this many times.
The idea is that from Ryan's perspective, this is the straw man.
Okay. I'll shut up. But I was like, I'm pretty sure that's a direct quote.
Yeah, Connor, one of my chatters made a video. I think I put on my channel where it's just you, that part of that conversation. But on your side, you keep getting a larger and larger communist hat and more copies of Mao's little red book surrounding you.
That's a great
I'm not
edit.
surprised.
It made me laugh. It was really funny. But I mean, look, this is actually, again, like this is not. Connor made this argument. This is not an uncommon argument. Like I think that this is the core of wanting to replace natural law with positive rights. Is a belief that human beings, and Americans in particular, because we're in America, are too stupid and lazy and worthless to be charged with actual responsibility. Therefore, since they cannot live up to their duties, we should not protect their rights, and we should, in fact, nanny state them to death. Because, yeah, if the people are small and insignificant and feeble and docile, then they probably do need to be shepherded to a better tomorrow. That's a fucking horrifying sentiment, but it's not an uncommon one.
Excellent. Connor, do you feel like that was a sufficient steel manning of that position?
Yeah, like listen, guy, I hate to be like, yeah, I agree 100%, but I do like I do not have a lot of respect for the average proletarian mass. I am like an elitist in a lot of senses. I think part of our modern problem in our zeitgeist is we've basically said, oh, you got a webcam and a microphone, you can have an opinion. And then all the fucking dipshits have gotten together and they've all agreed that their dipshit opinions are good. And they appeal to the fact that there's hundreds of thousands or millions of them in order to reinforce that their shit is good. And I think that the only thing that I object to is like the cruelty of the sentiment, which like I probably meme about a lot. So it's probably my fault. But I do think it's more like a paternalistic. It's a paternalistic thing. Like your child is going to do stupid shit. He's going to hurt himself. He's going to go on misadventures and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think there's any problems with having like a paternal instinct to guide somebody away from poor behavior. And I think that if we looked at our pop culture, if we looked at our consumerist tendencies, if we looked at our materialist culture, we would see where freedom has gone off the rails a shitload. And we do not have a corrective social mechanism besides cultural critique. I still think cultural critique is the way that we need to do it for the most part. But there's going to be extreme examples, physical disability, mental disability, communism, where the state is going to have to step in and correct.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up those examples because the
communism was supposed to be partially sarcastic, and everybody was like, "Okay."
Well, I mean, the father of American progressivism, Woodrow Wilson, was a big fan of forced sterilization of Americans for exactly that reason. There were some people who were just too stupid and useless to breed. It was polluting the gene pool. We got to stop these morons from having kids. They're going to fuck it up for everybody. But you end up at that position when you abandon equal moral worth pretty quickly is the point. And this is, I think, one of the big disagreements between Connor and I. And like, again, this doesn't mean equal ability. It just means equal moral worth. But like, yeah, if we're not going to grant that, the American project's in some trouble.
This is actually something that we've discussed in the past, and it's actually something that I'm wrestling with psychologically, because I think that our society is better when we start with the proposition that human beings are of equal moral worth. But then I have this problem where I think Ryan actually might have said this a few minutes ago. It's like, well, you at least need to subscribe to the noble lie, right? And so I'm trying to wrestle with, do I think that the noble lie of equal moral worth, in my opinion, are the fruits of that noble lie so good that we should just accept it? Or is it even a lie, right? You're supposed to judge wisdom by the fruit of the tree. And so if we start with the truth, like a propositional claim that human beings have all equal moral worth, and then if we create a better society, then is it untrue? And I'm still I'm wrestling with that. I don't have a final answer.
Yeah,
or solution,
truth,
if you will.
It's a type of truth if you make that assumption and live as if that assumption is true, and it does make a better society, then it becomes a fact that living by that assumption is true, and it makes a better society, and so it is true on some level.
Right. Well, and I don't know what to do with that. So for instance, like just when it comes to like political dissidence, I was joking about the communist thing, but like if we lived in a society in which we treat all human beings as if they have equal moral worth and they have freedom of conscience and freedom of speech, and then we have like a vibrant social marketplace of ideas, and we're always engaging in dynamic cultural and economic activity, and America remains at the forefront of geopolitical, military, and cultural dominance, versus if I don't believe that human beings have an equal moral worth and we can make judgment calls based off of their ideology. And then let's say that I just start sterilizing communists. That would be funny. I would love to do it, but at the same time, I might end the dynamism of the American experiment because I'm simultaneously not treating people as if they have equal moral worth, and I'm also engaging in like almost biological oppression against ideological groups in violation of the concept of the First Amendment of the United States. And so I might be, in my opinion, I might be descriptively correct, but the products of what I'm making is poison. And so why would I advocate for that? And so I'm still wrestling with that idea right now.
Well, I'm curious how all this molding is going to inform your response to your straw man, which we have right here.
People who are too fucking stupid to make good decisions in life deserve to fail because otherwise it would be at the expenses of everybody else's liberty. Again, I don't think this is a straw man. This might be a direct quote. This might be Ryan's direct quote. So I agree with the sentiment. I think it's very libertarian. I also think it's very American, like very 19th century American individualist conceptions of, live and let live, but also live and let die. So, but I do think that another thing that we're arguing about in our conversations, and we're probably going to proceed, is that when you look at the French Revolution, they have liberty, equality, fraternity as their founding principles, right? And when you have the American Revolutionary Project, we have life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And allegedly there was a debate about whether or not life, liberty, and property was going to be the three principles, because they viewed property as the vehicle for establishing life and liberty. So that's one of those things where I feel like I would need to see historical, textual, and constitutional justification from Ryan for why liberty seems, at least from my perspective in his argumentation, seems to be the primary value at the expense of pursuit of happiness and at expense of life. We did talk about life in the context of natural rights, so I don't want to straw man that perspective of it. And actually, weirdly enough, I'll shut up in a second, I promise. But what Ryan articulated, which I think is a fun articulation, is that life was understood in a natural rights context during the writing of the Declaration of Independence, but then progressives in the early 20th century effectively turned it into, like a positive rights argument of, if you do not have your daily bread, if you do not have shelter, if you do not have employment, if you do not have this, that's a problem and it's the government's job to fix. So I'll shut up there.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to articulate it is that natural rights pre-exist the government. So they would exist regardless of whether the government was there, right? So they can't be things that the government is doing for you, because without the government, things the government does for you don't exist. These are things that are intrinsic to you, to who you are. You, as a human with moral worth, are endowed. You have the right to pursue your life, to pursue your happiness, to, yes, develop property and make it productive and pass it on to your children. Like these sorts of things are part of what it means to be a human moving through the world. Positive rights are things the government can give you. They're policy preferences, but they're not the same thing. And one of what Connor put it well, because he was quoting some really smart guy. What happened is that these things were twisted and the negative rights became positive rights, but positive rights, of course, come from the government. So it could be no other way. So once you twist them and they become positive rights, then you are suddenly making an argument for an expansive government. And you're making the argument that rights come from the government, which is totally contrary to what our founders would have believed.
Excellent.
Well,
it seems as though this should solidify that you've both been pretty well acquainted with each other's positions. There's no talking past each other. It's just a matter of digging a little bit further into the topic. And I, for one, look forward to seeing that conversation continue. It's been a lot of fun watching it. So this has been a great edition of Straw Man, Steel Man. And with that, we go to the next item on today's itinerary.
It's not going to be as bad as you guys think.
I'm not sure how I feel about the straw man being just direct quotes from one of our conversations. That feels a little
the
pointed.
first one felt straw manny, like it was like a sentence taken from chat in order to piss me off. The second one, I'm pretty sure, was actually just direct quotes from Ryan and myself.
These were the most incendiary takes that you both had. Maybe you might not feel it was a straw man, but the other party would. We tried to give a little bit of feeling of escalation to the game. That way, it's just not.
No. I mean, it was still great. But when you were like,
conversation,
people are too stupid for liberty, and the state must be paternalistic towards its own citizens to protect them from their own stupidity, I was like, I'm pretty sure I said that.
I wonder what cued me in to criticize your progressive conservatism. I wonder what you said.
Well,
but yeah, Burke would probably be upset as well.
Maybe so. Speaking of progressivism, James, it's time we staged an intervention with you.
Oh,
You've got a WIC appearance tomorrow, don't you?
Well, sort of. It's not technically formal. He's got call-ins. He told me to call in to defend myself and redeem myself and my own personal philosophy. So hopefully he'll give me some time tomorrow. Otherwise, my 1,200 word essay that I've written on the foundations of liberalism and how and my claim that they're not necessarily in contradiction to communism and socialism will all be for next to nothing. But
Boo.
I think
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Once again, I think you guys are going to nod along for a good portion of this. It grounds liberalism in natural law, inalienable rights, and the history of Hobbes and Locke. I think if I gain nothing else from this that Ryan will enjoy, it will be that when I read this for Wix audience, they will be more educated on liberalism than before. And so, you know what? With that, we're going to go into it. I read this out a couple of times and it comes in at about 7 minutes. Do you guys think you can sit tight for that if it's worth it?
I can. I definitely have ADD and ADHD. At least my audience keeps telling me that. But I can actually, compared to people who have that diagnosable, I can be silent for 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can allow for certain interruptions as long as we're judicious about it. Wouldn't you agree, James?
Of course.
Beautiful. I'm going to enjoy those interruptions very much. Looking forward to this. Take it away, James.
Alrighty. So we begin. Though this piece is not without serious and deep consideration, preparation, research, and legitimate thought on the foundations of both liberalism and communism, I will first remark that this is the work of 1 week and written not to tax the intended audience. As much as it is an earnest and meaningful contribution to the dialogue, it is also pithy in regard to the monumental task which it purports to undertake. And so I give you the Vagabond Manifesto, a framework for a new liberal, socialist, and communist alliance. Scratch a neoliberal and a fascist bleeds. Scratch a Twitter communist and a fascist also bleeds. Scratch liberty and we all bleed. TLDR, read Marx, it's not my job to educate you. All right. So, before I embark on what is certain to become the foundational document of the modern revolutionary spirit, it must first be emphatically stated that any enterprise which chooses to organize under the banner name of communism must be held to immediately, unequivocally, and thoroughly renounce and reject the horrors of past communist ventures and their abandonment of the critical liberal values that protect our society. All previous communist projects were abominable in their destruction of liberty, of human flourishing, and of human dignity itself, and have been responsible for more deaths than Hitler and Genghis Khan combined. And these have been the undeniable fruits of every previous communist project of note. And until that work has been done utterly, both to diagnose and correct for every error which leads to such calamity, every project which labors under that banner should be treated with the same contempt, skepticism, and derision as I recently have been. And those of us communists who understand this requirement should not only join in the suppression of horrors, but we should thank those who assist in suppressing those movements. So thank you guys for calling me out on my bullshit.
My pleasure. Prepare for more of the same.
But to the same degree that we good communists condemn the atrocities of failed communism and affirm the critical values of liberty that we share, so should we be welcomed into the discourse. Yet it is insufficient simply to cry out at each failure, not real communism, no true Scotsman, and wash our hands once and for all of those stains. Good communists must recognize and celebrate the continuing triumph of liberal democracy, just as good liberals must continue to be open to an evolving understanding of what it means for the government to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
James, if I may jump in real quick, we're getting a request from chat to turn up your volume a bit.
Turn up my volume. Chat on our end.
Chat on our end. We've got Chapingro in the YouTube stream saying that you're just a little bit quiet. We need everybody to hear these bad ideas that you're espousing as clearly as possible.
Noise gay. Look at your stream. Stand alone. Stand alone.
Well, for a diatribe in favor of communism, you've been off to a good start by disavowing communism. So far, I think about as good as we could hope for.
Yeah, he used the phrase "good communists" a lot of times, which is, it's like talking about, friendly Satan. But we'll see where he's going with it.
It's like tasting pickles with your vanilla ice cream a little bit. Although those are both good things, you might actually, well, either way, bad analogy, but it supports the idea that it's not something that the brain is used to. Very curious to see where this will go.
All right, there we go. You guys can hear me fine, and now I will be louder on our stream. All right, back to whatever this is. All right, good communists must recognize and celebrate the continuing triumph of liberal democracy. Okay, next paragraph. Because I believe it is the spirit of community, of mutual respect and support, and of love for one's fellow person that is the next step in bringing about a more perfect union of the people. One which will both protect the basic inalienable rights of life and liberty, but which truly understands what it means to empower its citizens with the utmost ability to pursue happiness, in liberty and an enduring domestic tranquility. It is my belief that the founding fathers of our United States were not in error when they proclaimed liberty as the heart of governance, that the primary purpose of government was to band together a union of mankind in order to protect, most crucially, democratic governance by the governed, self-determination, equality before the law, freedom of belief and conscience, and freedom of speech, that they are vital to human flourishing and should remain a guiding light and foundational doctrine, even as we struggle each day to understand what a more perfect union truly looks like. And it is also my belief that the path of communism is not inherently in opposition to these values. When originalist liberal philosophers like Thomas Hobbes began building the conception of inalienable rights, it was limited to only that which could tautologically not be removed from a person. Meaning, in Hobbes' conception, the only thing that a government could not possibly take away from you and still consider you its subject was your life. Hobbes believed that government's ultimate goal was to protect us from anarchy, from the rule of the jungle, what he called the war of all against all, which is the state of man in nature. And so long as it did that, it was justified. But as freedom began to take hold, as we the people seized control bit by bit from feudal lords, from kings and queens, the great founding minds of the American tradition recognized that we can and must ask more of our governments, that merely leaving us our lives was insufficient, that even if they can take everything from you, they can never take your free will or your internal ability to pursue your best life, no matter what else they take from you. And so it became the soul of liberalism for government to enshrine and serve the protection of these essential rights. First and foremost, to protect these rights from the government itself. Slowly, we wrest from the clutches of time an understanding of what it means to be free. Slowly, we build the maxims by which we understand how to build both government and society. But liberalism and our fight for liberty was not a simple and concise code of conduct that revealed itself the moment we overthrew tyranny. Liberalism, like socialism and communism, is and was a complex evolution of ideas, of tensions and opposing goals, of maxims made of pure ideology that cannot possibly survive the real world. Many liberal philosophers wanted only the protection of negative rights, protection from government and fellow man, because anything more would become the self-same tyranny we had only just rid ourselves of. But others recognized the necessity to move beyond merely preventing government from restricting rights, and that instead a government could provide a framework for the people to create a more effective protection and even an enhancement of those inalienable rights. And so Rousseau argues in the social contract that the true freedom that true freedom is found in obedience to laws that citizens prescribe for themselves through a collective democratic agreement. Today this is held as self-evident, but at the time he was met with immense hostility because it challenged the divine right of kings to rule. He argued society was best served through the people entering into a binding pact where individuals surrender their natural independence to a collective sovereign composed of all citizens. In return, they gained civil rights, legal protections and powers such as property ownership and political participation that are guaranteed by the general will of the community. Rousseau also introduced the core concepts of tolerance in society and recognized that each individual's rights to maximal freedom were in contradiction to the maximal freedom of every other individual. And so modern liberalism was constructed to protect inalienable rights and provide a framework for an ideal society, negotiated democratically amongst the people. Although it is understood that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, freedom of speech, freedom of property, equal representation, and equality before the law are all fundamental maxims by which we construct society, yet they each carry contradictions between them. In the real world, we recognize that we must, under strict circumstances, abridge these idealized rules. We don't allow children to vote. Can't yell bomb on an airplane. You can't make violent threats. Eminent domain allows for the overrule of property rights. And many still argue that taxation itself is an offensive destruction of the right to property. Every attempt at governance is a delicate balancing act of rights and ideals against material reality and its contradictions. Thus, in reality, when people recoil from Marxist and communist ideals and claim they are an irreconcilable destruction of the purity of the ideological maxims of liberalism, the truth is that these maxims of liberty were always in contradiction, and the perfection of liberty lies in negotiating the ideal balance between them. Workers' rights are in contradiction to free association and free markets, as is minimum wage, and a progressive tax can be said to be an unequal burden on the successful. These are all communitarian laws in contradiction to individualism. In reality, as soon as the maxims of liberalism were conceived, they were already in living contradiction with one another. And the same living tensions exist in communist and Marxist fundamental ideas. And it is only from a glib, hypocritical, and superficial imagining of them that we come to the common misunderstandings of Marxism and communism. Most modern criticisms of communism come from misguided projections built from crude maxims. The claim that it is a direct goal of communism to abolish states, for instance, and therefore all forms of governance is chief among them. While it is true that communism is often essentially defined as a stateless, classless society, this is merely a prediction on what the world will look like as we abolish unjust class stratification and systemic exploitation. And as we learn to build, uh, and it will reveal itself as we perfect human society. It is not a goal unto itself. The goal is instead to empower people with equality of opportunity, most exemplified in the famous phrase, from each according to his ability to each according to his need. The same can be said of the claim that it requires a bloody revolution and upheaval of our current liberal order. When Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto, the world was still living in a state of oligarchy. especially in the Russian and European nations. The, the liberal status quo he was critiquing was an undeniably unjust hierarchy that every good liberal would now oppose. The states of that era truly were built more purely of unjust class stratification, a lack of democracy, as he coined it, bourgeois democracy. Even in the US, your right to vote could be removed if you didn't own enough property or pay enough tax. And that's not even to speak of voting rights for women and other minorities. The reality is that the revolution, as he meant it, simply meant ridding society of those unjust and superficial claims of having completed the cause of liberalism. So it is my belief, had Marx lived to see the American project continue its work, he would see that we have completed the most important work of revolution. The power rests now in the hands of the people. And so we can finally arrive at the question, why communism? What meaningful contributions has Marx and his philosophy brought to the table? Well, communism in my heart simply means to continue that long process of understanding human nature, to again ask what makes for the best society, and provide an ideal path forward for human flourishing, to, to perfect liberty, protect human dignity, and empower humanity to live in harmony. And it empowers us to do so through its recognition that the system of economic production puts an incredible pressure on the way our society functions. Through his concept of historical materialism, he aimed to scientifically consider this struggle and aimed his philosophy towards that greater freedom that liberalism began in earnest. Perhaps most importantly, I want to state that the most common error in past communist ventures and in the criticisms of Marxism and communism is the assumption that all of these goals are quickly and easily attainable. There is no revolution that can immediately and permanently bring about communism. It is a long-term project of perfecting the mechanisms of government and society. And in my mind, it is the continuing perfection of the liberal order. To quote Daniel Day-Lewis pretending to be Abraham Lincoln, compass, it'll point you true north from where you're standing, but it's got no advice about the swamps, deserts, and chasms that you'll encounter along the way. If in pursuit of your destination, you plunge ahead heedless of obstacles and achieve nothing more than to sink in a swamp, what's the use of knowing true north? And finally, let me conclude by saying the history of liberalism and Marxism are both incredibly dense and rich and deserving of much more thought than either I or our common dialogues around them have given due consideration to. If I'm in error in any of what I've said, I'm open to reconsider it. Where Marx is wrong, I'm willing to move forward beyond him. Where our previous conceptions of liberalism are in error, so should we do the same. For what is at stake is human flourishing, the dignity of mankind, and its freedom to build a better tomorrow. Whew, thank you for bearing with me.
Well, Connor, I got to say, James has done a better job of convincing me that people do not have equal moral worth than you ever did.
Here we go.
I'm now warming to the idea that we should start, sterilizing certain communists. At first, I thought this was tough, but now that I had to listen to that for fucking an endless period of time, holy shit, James, that was awful. And you should be ashamed of yourself for reading it. To quote Billy Madison, we are all stupider for having heard what you had to say. The idea.
May God rest your soul. May God have mercy upon your soul, is I think how he ends it there.
Just like pick a few examples at random. Just like this is not inconsistent with the natural rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And by the way, I'm for from their ability to each according to their means, which is the idea that we are not going to pursue equal opportunity, but are instead going to take from people and give to other people because they need it more. So the entire speech was riddled with endless contradictions. The goal is a classless, stateless society. But of course, how are we going to get through that? As you said yourself, communism doesn't mean that there's not going to be a state. damn right it doesn't mean there's not going to be a state, because there's no way to impose a classless, stateless society without a state powerful enough to tyrannize its people, which is what communism will predictably do.
Unfortunately, I did pay attention.
Push forward.
Well, James, I think don't worry, I'll also join in on beating you shortly. But
Excellent.
what I was taking from that segment though was that liberalism and mixed economy capitalism have been living in the contradiction compared to their espoused individualism since their inception. So effectively, we start with like all these things about, oh well, everybody is of equal moral worth and life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. But then we institute almost immediately law enforcement, military, random laws, progressive taxation, property tax, standardization of monetary supply, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And these would all be, which actually I think is going to go into our argument where you say, oh, well, we zigged when we should have zagged 120 years ago. What James is saying is we zagged in 1777. You know, like we got done in 1776 with the revolution, and then we zagged immediately because there are material demands upon our highfalutin conceptions of individualism and liberalism, but the material world demands a certain level of communitarian stuff. Now, feedback, though, even though I did understand that conception, I do feel like we move through like a flowery, similar to the Communist Manifesto, by the way, flowery suck-off of liberalism, the way that communism starts with a flowery suck-off of capitalism, but then where the Communist Manifesto then goes into from a flowery suck-off of capitalism into a harsh critique of capitalism. I felt like you were still maintaining some of the floweriness, and so I was waiting for the punch of, well, this is where society is, but this is where we need to go. And then that actually was going to be my critique, was that in your compass analogy, what I think you're kind of saying could be misunderstood is that, like, we believe that the moneyless, stateless class of society is not it's not a direction that we're going in because we are going to force society to go that way. We believe that through the emancipation of humanity from oppressive and unjust hierarchies, we are going to result here. But here's my problem with it, and I'm sure it's Ryan's problem as well. Who the fuck said that a moneyless, stateless, classless society was gonna be the true north? And who the fuck said that communism or socialism was the default, natural, or good end state of humanity? Because that hasn't been, in my opinion, that hasn't been argued successfully. What's happened is communists and socialists have said, oh, socialism is the moral position. Communism is the moral position. The moneyless, stateless class of society is the moral position, but they've never said why.
And actually, that is in the essay there. Let's see if I can find this spot, or I'll just basically, they are pushing for the thing that isn't the goal. The goal is human flourishing. The goal is creating a society that empowers people. And
yeah, but who says that socialism or communism are the vehicles for human flourishing,
or that's the goal?
Well, I mean, I think human flourishing actually is the goal, but
I know. But the thing about this, the reason that this bothers me so much is that it assumes that humans do not have a nature, and I think humans do have a nature. Like there's a blank slate.
I think you would argue that they're trying to align humanity with nature.
Yeah, they're wrong. You can argue fucking anything. Like the idea that you separate man from his ability to develop his property, to live his life, that you'll be able to condition him to accept these things, and that as a result they'd be happier, is, I think, ridiculous. I think
my argument is that we've already done that. We've already done that in our creation of laws, in our creation of protections against one another. You're already doing that, and I'm saying that we just need to continue to select from those necessary tamping down on those contradictory.
Oh yeah,
rights.
Can I also tell you why you're an asshole real quick?
Yeah.
So I've been fighting with Ryan for like weeks, saying like, hey man, like, you know, just because the American project started out as a negative rights proposition doesn't mean we have to remain limited by the ideas of 250-year-old, you know, like slave owners. Like, that's the straw man, right?
And
but I'm
now
like,
I've done
we should
all of
remain
that
limited.
and called it communism.
We should try to achieve a better humanity. And then Ryan's like, no, that's the way to the dark side of the force. Your desire for a utopian humanity is how you result with communism. And then your speech is, hey, brah, we can progress past the 250-year limitations of these slave-owning bigots. And realistically, there's a bunch of contradictions in their philosophy anyways, so we can achieve a better humanity. And I want to go way farther than Connor. And I was like, fuck. Like literally the entire time.
And
you
2/3 of the way
that,
writing this, I was like, this is just going to give
it.
Ryan the opportunity to say everything he wants to say about what he disagrees with Connor about.
No, literally,
not only is he going to hate
every
me, he's going to be like,
liberal
see?
Anybody who argues for a utopian vision of humanity, Ryan's just going to be like, look at James.
I mean,
he's a communist. He said the exact same things that you did. Exactly.
As luck would have it, right before this, I was just arguing this very point with Wick, where Wick was saying that, modern liberalism is the true liberalism, and I saying, no, it's not. You might not look like Hassan today, but you'll look like him in 20 years, and because you lack limiting principles. And here's James to remind us that, modern liberals don't think the limiting principles mean shit. If our limiting principles allow for communism, they allow for fucking anything. There's no brakes on the train. Like it's hard to think of an idea. I'll quote Douglas Murray, which is one of my, because it's a fun quote where he says like, well, to achieve communism and the great end of human flourishing and however you want to package it today, you're going to have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. And it's like, well, brother, it's been tried. There's 100 million dead bodies, and there's no fucking omelet. So
James said that was bad.
Well, they all say
it was bad.
They all say the thing that bothers me about this is that there's this idea that floats around there in the ecosystem that the horrors of communism were like accidental. It's because they were the bad communists. No, the horrors of communism were the logical outgrowths of the belief system. It's not random that it kept happening. It's going to keep happening every time. That'll be the outcome every single fucking time if you do communism at scale.
At my own peril, I'll defend James real quick. So I will, anyways. So I think that you oriented liberalism or like human liberty as the limiting principle that you would have to adhere to while you're pursuing these things. And also when it comes to the socialist revolutions of the 20th century, they didn't have that at all. Matter of fact, they effectively said, subordinate yourself consistently. You do not have liberalism. You do not have individual liberty. You must subordinate yourself in the name of this greater project, which was the pretext and moral license through which they did authoritarian slaughter. So but I'll bring it back to Ryan. So any state that is capable, and democratic socialists make this argument as well, like, oh, well, we can institute the decommodification of basic human need and workers owning the means of production democratically. And I'm just thinking to myself, it's like, well, if you do that 5149, but then you still create a state that is powerful enough to enforce the decommodification of basic human needs and workers owning the means of production, you're still using an incredible amount of compulsion and force. And a state large enough to enforce that level of wealth transfer is a wildly powerful state, like one that's almost begging to become tyrannical.
And let's go even a level deeper, like classless society. Like, okay, while people may have equal moral worth, they do not have equal ability. There are people in society who are overwhelmingly capable and overwhelmingly ambitious compared to other people, and they will predictably achieve more. To have a classless society would be, you need some force that would then prevent classes from forming, because people who are better at doing things are naturally going to form the top of value hierarchies, as they have in every society in all of human history for all of mankind, because that is part of our social structure. It's part of who we are. So I don't even know, like, what conceptually in your mind would be a stateless society that would prevent classes from forming when people achieve more because they are better at doing things. Like LeBron James is going to be the fucking chieftain of the tribe because he's 6'7" and built like a freight train. And that's, it's not because, there's some oppressive structure that makes him war chief. It's because he's 6'7" and built like a freight train. Like there are some people who are better.
Or the
at
oppressive
science.
system is nature.
Nature is
that
the
James.
ultimate
That
oppressive
actually
system.
that lines up with a question I wanted to ask you. So, for instance, like oftentimes when I deal with communists or whatever, they'll just use the word unjust as kind of like their escape valve to Ryan's criticism right now. Well, they'll just say, "Oh, well, this was a predicted byproduct of communist and socialist orientation, not necessarily like a hard goal that we need to get to." But then, like for me, statism has almost within nestled in it a certain level of like human necessity. So, for instance, like even if we lived in a community of 30 or 50, we're probably going to create the equivalent of like a council of elders. And if we face a military threat, we're probably going to create the equivalent of like a tribal militia leader. And so, like, how even in a state of nature where let's say that we're like post scarcity luxury or whatever, but let's say there's like a natural threat like a disaster, or let's say that there's an external threat like an invasion, how would we not revert to these tribalist societies that I think some socialists and communists would deem as unjust? For instance, a legislative council of elders or a military leader. That's kind of another thing that I have, is that like nature, oftentimes communists and socialists, they vilify statism and social organization as unjust hierarchies, whereas I see the emanation of hierarchy oftentimes as like a product of natural processes.
A lot of questions in here. Basically, the state is only predicted to dissolve in as much as we no longer require it. And so if we, and in my writing I say that it is not the goal unto itself, it is simply where we arrive at if it were to be perfective. And I kind of like to think of it as like the goal is to sort of asymptotically approach that goal. As we are able to produce more in society, then we're able to share more amongst each other. As we are uh, able to protect our own safety, then we might not need armies and police as much. And in as much as we can instill a moral core in a person so that they will not violate other people's rights, then we would lose more and more requirement to have a state. So it's not a goal unto itself to become a stateless class of society. That is just almost definitionally what will happen as we gain these abilities and understandings and that capabilities.
So why call it communism? What you're describing is anarcho-capitalism. If you talk to like an ANCAP or you talk to like an anarcho-objectivist, they're going to say natural law is human nature. These are like, we have these intrinsic rights. There should be no state because the state always infringes on these rights. What we should do is we should set people up, and the people will, adjudicate these issues amongst themselves. They don't need governance. They don't need the state to tell them what to do. There should be no public property. It should all be private property. People will figure this shit out. The only difference between their position and yours is that you think that this is going to happen and it's going to be utopian, and they think this is going to happen, and a lot of dumb people are going to starve to death because they were too dumb to figure out how to earn food, and they're fine with that. But like, that's just a gamble on what human nature is like. I actually think theirs is more plausible than yours, for whatever that's worth. But you're not like, what you're describing is anarcho-capitalism, but with a gamble on what human nature turns out to be.
No. The idea would be that we wouldn't be capitalists because we would be supporting one another. We would have a shared understanding of mutual support. So it would require a moral substantiation of this philosophy in people.
There it is. Yeah, You need
not by force. No.
not by
This
force.
is-
I'm not saying by force.
That's the whole problem
remember when
with
I
every
said
communist venture. They're trying to push beyond the limits of what
it's what I
I've
was saying.
set out in this paper.
It's the blank slateism that I was talking about earlier. Communists fundamentally believe that humans are a blank slate and they can rewrite them in a way that humans have never behaved at any point in history and are unlikely to ever behave in the future. That's what makes it utopian. Is they think that, oh my God, we could just get to a point where humans would just behave this way.
Amazonian. We have hypothetical Amazonian societies that have like 30 people or whatever that have lived in a socialistic communist way. We have archaeological evidence of cavemen with broken bones who were cared for communally by their societies. So I mean, like when socialists say or communists say well, I mean, they didn't have money, they didn't have a state, and they didn't have classes. So when they say the decommodification,
how do you know they didn't have classes?
Well, I mean, I think the classes that did emanate were the ones that I was talking about, like
the hunters and the warriors
or council of elders.
Yes, those are classes.
Well, sure. Well, which is why
they're
I was
just
kind
not
of
modern
testing
classes, but they're classes.
But I think that communists and socialists kind of ballerina away from that. Number one, James's new argument effectively of saying like, well, that's just a description of outcome, not an orientation towards specific goal. That's the first time that I've heard that argument, but okay. But then that's why I asked the question I asked, which is like, how would these classes not re-emanate through natural processes, even though some people call them unjust? What's the value metric for how we deem them just versus unjust? But the tribalist system, let's just say that I concede the class argument. But let's say that the communists and socialists say, oh, well, these are justified hierarchies, therefore they don't count. Then at that point, I don't know how you get Amazon.com in this model. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know how you get to space with the social, like even arguing like what do you call it? Like a paleo communism, that we were able to achieve a kind of like natural harmony in pre-industrial civilization that we should return to. I don't know how we get back to that harmonious state of nature post-industrial revolution. And not just that, wouldn't we evaluate like the vitality and longevity of human life in post-industrial versus pre-industrial society and say that the sacrifice of harmony is worth all of the goods of industrialization? You know, that's my other frustration.
In the short term, in the near term, sure,
capitalism and statist liberal democracy, the proof is in the pudding. Why the fuck would we try to go back to pre-industrial social organization?
That's not the intention here. That's not the intention here. You once again, you only remove those things as they no longer become impediments to your ability to produce. Like it is utopian. It is like, that's why I say you asymptotically approach it. You don't necessarily get to become a total communist society, but the philosophies of recognizing exploitation of one another and removing those impediments is the goal.
So why don't the good communists start working on a slave race of robots who make human manual labor redundant? Because I swear to God, when you talk about the decommodification of basic human needs and workers owning the means of production, the requirement for labor is always going to be present. So arguably, you're going to need laborers who, even if they're not sentient or sapient, are capable of replacing human labor. Well, and even then, humans are probably still going to choose to labor. So why the fuck aren't you working on, like fucking Tesla X robots that can, suck you off and pick oranges?
And I think, actually, Connor, the problem's even more profound than that. Like, let's imagine that we have the robots, right? And humans are still laboring a little bit because that's our nature. Another part of human nature is that I prefer myself, I prefer my children, I prefer my family, I prefer my close friends, I prefer my community over other people. And I don't think that's ever going away. And by the way, I don't think it should go away. So like, if I have an idea that helps me accumulate resources and can make life better, I'm not ungenerous, I'm not uncharitable, but the first thing I'm going to do is ensure that my inner circle, my children, are living the best possible life. And I'm going to favor them over other people. every single time because they're my children. And as a result, if I'm good at what I'm doing, you will have classes emerge, even if you didn't have them previously. And if I'm shit at what I'm doing, then Connor's going to do it, and his kids are going to be the ones that have more benefits than everybody else's. Because like, I don't think humans are the kind of animal that says, yeah, you know what? My kids and your kids are all the same. Let's make sure that they each get taken care of equally. I don't think that's how we work. I think that we do prefer our own children, and we should. That it's not a bad thing. It's enlightened self-interest. And I think it's the reason capitalism works is because it accurately describes human nature. And the reason communism doesn't work is it inaccurately describes human nature. And as a result, they keep wondering, like, holy shit, when are we going to get to the point when the people start living these values? And they're like, no, fucker, they're never going to, because people aren't that kind of animal.
Yep, that's why my near-term project is not terribly different from y'all's. You know, I admit that it's utopia. It's something that very possibly will never be created. But I do think that directionally there are a lot of rational predictions that are made in the concept of the state disappearing over time as we solve for each problem. I don't.
Can I ask a follow-up on that though?
Yeah.
So for instance, like I actually asked Demon Mama this. She was an anarcho-communist in the debate sphere for a while. So she made the argument that we could come to a material condition in which we decommodify basic human needs, workers own the means of production. Maybe we result at a moneyless, stateless class of society, or just through productive human thought in labor, we arrive at least at a society that doesn't have unjust hierarchy. And we've achieved such harmony that almost every single interaction is voluntary because we've just dialed in the harmony so aggressively. Okay, what happens when we get invaded by a rival alien species that's militarist? Because for me, like the reversion to statism, compulsory hierarchy, military draft, like domestic security apparatus, international security apparatus, it's so apparent that we would default to these systems that are deemed unjust by socialism and communism. Why would you? And this was the question that I wanted to ask even before I heard you say that, is like, why is this true north? Like, how do you know that, let's say that I have a compass, and the compass says that like human thriving is in this direction. And, you know, actually Ryan has a different compass that says, who gives a shit about human thriving? Here are our orienting principles. Let's orient ourselves towards these principles and let the chips fall where they may. And then you have another compass that says human thriving orients us in this direction, but both Ryan and I are saying you're wrong. So why do you think your compass is correct?
That's the point of the compass quote, is to say the compass is not what we should be reading. The compass is not the goal. Yeah, that's the
swamps
point of
and
that
the mountains
quote.
and
those are the things that
we
need to work on. Yeah, sure.
I still don't like your magnetic north. I think your magnetic north is magnetic west, and as a result, you're going to end up in the desert without any water, and you're going to dehydrate to death.
Did you guys watch any Star Trek in your lives?
Tons.
Of course.
Okay, so one of my favorite things
on TNG.
One of my favorite things that ever happened is after they did this whole like abundance, enlightened society, replicators, we don't have any money, right? They boot up the Picard show, and they're trying to come up with like a plot for Picard. And Picard needs to go do something, and it's off planet, so he needs a ship. Well, it turns out even in the enlightened, classless, stateless Star Trek version of Utopia, ships are a scarce enough commodity that they don't just give fucking starships to everybody, because obviously that's a crazy idea. And it turns out that there is a selective order of the best and brightest who determine who is worthy to have access to the starship and who doesn't, based off their own militaristic and hierarchical concepts called Starfleet. And he can't get a ship because they don't think he's worthy of it. So even in the fictional utopian post-scarcity world of Star Trek, it's still so ideologically
That's not
incoherent
post-scarcity, though.
that
That's
they
not
could.
post-scarcity.
Okay,
Replicators are pretty
As
close
close
to
as you will get.
Okay.
As close as you will get. Sure, yeah.
I do.
it's a
Ryan
fictional
though,
universe, and it still doesn't
asymptote.
fucking work.
Hold on.
That's the point.
Allegedly, Picard's vineyard is private property. Okay, so or personal property or something.
Whatever.
So there's still some hybridization of capitalism within Star Trek, but it's not the kind of capitalism that we know, I suppose. But there's still the concept of property rights because his vineyard is private property. But that's where for me, James, and I'm sorry to back up Ryan a little bit, but that's
please.
where for me it's like, you were talking about good communists and bad communists. I think that let's say that we have the three compasses. Okay. My and Ryan's compass point in one direction, but I say we should go west. He says we go north. And then you have a compass and you're saying we should actually go northwest. But we both think that your compass is wrong and it's pointing west. And therefore you're about to walk into like a desert and die of dehydration. I feel like that's the metaphor where we're at right now. So my frustration with that though is like, it seems like if you did think that the abolishment of social hierarchy, the emancipation of human beings from the oppressions of capitalism, and well, actually, dude, that's how I would define socialism, is actually like trying to emancipate humanity from the oppressions of capitalism, or society or nature or whatever. And so why wouldn't communists and socialists, instead of being like tanky LARPer revolutionaries who want to seize Western free democracies, overthrow them, and then institute an economic system that's been, provably pretty bad in the 20th century, why aren't they focusing on like technological development that makes decommodification of basic human need effectively a moot point? So for instance, sorry that I'm yapping so much, but Pisco, when I asked him about decommodification of basic human needs and workers owning the means of production, he didn't like the workers owning the means of production. He thought that was a step too far. So he's not technically a socialist, right? But when I brought up decommodification of basic human needs, so for instance, like water, food, and shelter being free to the consumer without cost, he was like, yeah. Like if we could provide all those goods and services for free to the population, wouldn't it be an obvious moral good to do so? And so for me, part of the reason, sorry, I'm yapping so much, but part of the reason why I would actually say no is because I think that human productive labor is actually kind of like predicated on the desire to provide, bread, shelter, water for yourself. So we have to hijack productive human labor with human need. And so if we eliminate human need, then we're going to destroy human productive labor. So that for me is like, that's kind of a non-starter. But there would be so many people who would be like, Connor, you're an idiot. Like, why don't you just give everybody food, water, and shelter, and we'll let the gay space robots do all the labor? So that's what I'm saying. Like, why are you the only good communist?
Well, and Connor, it's even worse. I agree with all that, and it's worse too. Like, have you ever seen how little people give a shit about something that they didn't pay for? Like I learned this lesson the hard way when I was in college, and I was at the time like much thinner, much fitter, and like very very into martial arts. So I was like constantly trying to get my friends to like let me teach them because I wanted more buddies to train with. And so I was like, it's free. I'll teach you. I'll give you a private lesson, this sort of thing. It's like, oh, I want to share it. What I learned is that when you don't charge people for something, they don't value it at all, even if they are your friend. They don't show up. They're not committed. Even if they're nominally paying for it, suddenly they had to sacrifice something. They care about it. What you have, if we decommodify human needs, it's like, well, why not just run the water spigot outside my house 24 hours a day so the kids can run through it? Oh, well, I mean, I'm not paying for it. I don't give a shit. Why not? Well, then maybe somebody's going to have to tell me I can't do that anymore. So maybe there needs to be some kind of water rationing program. And you get back to the state controlling these things almost instantly based off 100% predictable human behavior. That people
just like when you ask a libertarian about their philosophy, they'll just reconstruct government slowly. Yeah. I think these are all fair criticisms.
Correct.
These are the questions that good communists should be asking. and I appreciate your guys' input. Like these are the questions that, if you believe in communism, I think you need to have answers for, and you need to chew on these things.
Then if we're focusing on it as a speech that you're going to be delivering to Wick's audience tomorrow that you expect to be challenged on, then my actual feedback is you can keep the same formula of positively introducing liberty as a primary value that you will not be willing to sacrifice, but you still think that socialism and communism are not inherent contradictions. I think that, similar to Ryan, some people are not going to notice that you're saying that the communitarian legislation and legal restrictions are already the contradictions of liberalism, and we already tolerate that, so why not go further? So maybe rephrase that a little bit. But I mean, I still understood what you were going for. And then what I would say is probably starting at 50 to 60%, I understood that you were setting up the transition to why socialism and communism is good. But then it felt like I was ready at 60% and you went to like 75 or 80 before making your transition to why communism was like okay to do. And realistically, I was ready at 60. So basically,
as
60,
I was reading it,
if you say, hey, you know, liberalism is already a contradiction because we engage in these communitarian actions that are already arguably against liberal values. So I want to take this a step, you know, why not go further? And then I pretty much remember that at the 60% mark. Once you say why not go further, then I think you need to, rather than reaffirming the case, you just need to go into why this is good. And you know, you already established it's not contradictory. You already established that liberalism is a motivating value. Now you have to make your case for why socialism or communism is your compass, why your northern compass is correct. And then not just that, I would keep the compass analogy though. I do think the compass analogy will give something for people to play with.
And if I was going to give feedback on the speech rather than the content, I would like you to open with, Wick, I saw you arguing with Ryan yesterday, and I would like you to know that I agree with you that liberal principles are 100% compatible with communism, and I'm going to tell you why. So if
his audience will just eat that up.
Add that preamble to the speech and do me that solid, it would do wonders for proving the point I was trying to make earlier tonight. So you know, I would appreciate that.
Beautiful. James, if you could give us a wonderful bow to tie this whole thing together, a conclusive statement from you, James, regarding your feedback and your position.
Yeah, I really appreciate the feedback. My position is that communism, as we understand it, is utopian. It's I can't tie this bow. I gotta do more research. Is what that the bow is. The liberal part of the essay was great, and then as we transition into communism, we don't know what that looks like, and that's the truth that I believe about communism. So there's the bow for it.
Beautiful. I want to say, Ryan, I took no pleasure in the anguish that you were feeling, but the anguish that you were expressing was absolutely sending me. There were several times where you were just rubbing your eyes or doing this with your face, and I just imagined that you must be thinking of all the more productive things that you could be doing with your time than sitting and listening to an endurance trial of a speech about communism. And juxtaposed with that, we've got a gentleman in the YouTube chat right now who's going by the moniker Joseph Stalin 6647, who is losing his absolute fucking marbles at everything James was saying from the opposite direction, saying that it's not real communism.
I love it.
I mean, he was just spurring stream of consciousness. I couldn't begin to say everything that he's been typing in the chats, but you have been getting it from both ends for the past 45 minutes. And whether or not that's something that you might actually enjoy, I think that it would be best for you to give it a rest, recollect, and get prepared for a great appearance on Wick tomorrow that I, for one, am very much looking forward to. And Connor and Ryan, thank you so much for helping stress test James's position here. That was
deeply
greatly appreciated.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. I don't know what we're moving into next, but I'm gonna say I have a bunch of shit talkers in my chat who are like, Ryan's here. If you're gonna be talking all that smack about how Ryan's such a bad dude and you don't disagree with him, allegedly there's going to be a call-in part of the show. I expect you to be in the call-in portion and to be able to succinctly articulate how he's incorrect
Put up or
or
shut up.
give better arguments than I can. Because if you're going to carry that kind of energy of, oh, Ryan's here, then you better have something to say when you have an opportunity to say it.
People are very brave when they're putting in anonymous comments.
Yeah, not so much when we got your actual human voice to pair with your words. There will indeed be call-ins, and we've got a Discord link that we've hopefully passed around. It's absolutely.
I sent Ryan and Counterpoints a link. If you guys,
I plugged it a couple of times.
Appreciate you.
Excellent. We've also got it in the description of our stream. So if you happen to be in the YouTube neighborhood, maybe check that out. If you want to find it there, maybe give the stream a like. Maybe even subscribe if you're feeling generous. We are here with Counterpoints and Ryan Mullally. You probably know where to find either of them if you're watching here, but just in case you don't, if you could maybe, Connor, if you go first, how can people find you?
Yeah, so probably the easiest way are two locations: Counterpoints Politics, Counterpoints Common Spelling. I'll spell it for you because fuck it. COUNTERPOINTS, Politics, Common Spelling. And then also Valor Media Network, VALOR, Media Common Spelling, Network Common Spelling. Effectively, I'm live 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. Tuesdays, I'm live on my home channel, which is Counterpoints Politics. The rest of the time, I'm live on Valor Media Network. Now, allegedly, I actually take my VODs and I chop them up into listenable VOD segments. I'm sorry, I've been very lax about doing that over the past 2 weeks. I just have a lot of crap going on and I haven't got to it. But check out both those channels, and I appreciate you.
Beautiful. Ryan, where can people find you?
So Natural Law with Ryan Mullally. You can find my information because my name's impossible to spell. I put up my branding because I remembered to. So you can find me on X and YouTube. If you're one of Connor's brave few, you can come disagree with me where you might get some pushback and see how that goes. I do not have a regular streaming schedule because I have a really kind of horrendously hours intensive 9 to 5. 9 to 5 is not the right term. 7 to 12 that occupies a lot of my time, but I have been putting up a lot of content. So, and I've been good about the videos recently. So there's a ton of there's a ton of back channel and back category stuff that you can dig into if you want to watch my content and see why I'm right and you're wrong, Connor's chat.
Brilliant. Yeah, I totally feel you on the backlog. We've got a stock that's we'll probably have to take care of that before too long. Otherwise, people are going to have to dig through videos from conversations that we had months ago. But the struggle is very real. There will indeed be call-ins, and we've talked about how you can find your way to those.
Yeah, actually, if you guys want to join right now, we can take those call-ins, and while we don't have call-ins, we'll play the game between those call-ins. So if you guys have something you want to say, you want to join the marketplace of ideas and get your ideas out there, then please jump into the Discord, jump into the waiting room.
Now,
one of my brave chatters was like, yeah, I don't know. I just think his arguments are kind of gay. And it's like I can't.
Well, we can't make.
I can't do anything with that, man. What do you want me to do with that?
Yeah,
I agree, but I just think that's good. So,
well, if we're chilling for time, Connor, I got one for you.
Sure.
This is from my buddy, potentially criminal Sean, if you know his channel. He super chatted in to say, please ask Connor this for me, quote, how does helping the Bolsheviks gain power, quote, save conservatism? He understands the left doesn't like him and are using him to undermine the conservative movement, right? End quote. Floor is yours, buddy.
Yeah, so it depends on what you consider conservatism and Bolshevik. So if you actually consume the content, I'm going to try to, I know that gentleman might not like me very much, but I'm going to try to answer this question as earnestly as possible. So if you look at the left-wing sphere and a healthy chunk of the content that I cover, effectively what's happening is a really uncomfortable conversation where half of the progressives want to cozy up to Hassan Piker and the actual socialists and leftists. Half of the progressive think it's a bad idea because he's optical rat poison. And then the liberals are probably split 80-20, 90-10, where they're like, well, do we use him because he has a large audience, or is he electoral rat poison and he's going to damage our ability to be viable in elections? So when you're saying like helping the Bolsheviks win, I think that Bernie Sanders, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, and maybe a half dozen other representatives are socialists who are hiding their power level. But I don't think there's any real Marxist, Leninist, authoritarian, revolutionary communist in Congress. I don't think we're close to an ML revolution. Whereas I do think that the techno-feudalism offered by J.D. Vance and the Trump and MAGA movement effectively is infinitely more invasive and destructive than what the left is currently doing. However, I'm trying to consider, I know I've been yapping, I'm trying to consider Ryan's argument that maybe I have a misunderstanding about what America is, and the past 100 years of welfare state and statism are not the intent of the founding of our republic. And so do we dial that in technocratically? Do we take a fire axe to it? Do we try to restore the republic of 120 years ago? Or do we say, fuck it, and I know Ryan would hate this part, do we say, fuck it, the amount of human well-being and flourishing that we have achieved through breaking our rules is worth breaking our rules? And that's something that I'm contemplating and actively debating Ryan on.
Yeah,
So.
it's an interesting topic, and I read the chat because it was a little bit funny, and also because Sean paid me to. So I'm a capitalist.
Sean, I think Sean dislikes me just because he thinks that I sweat for Destiny. And then also I'm too friendly with the left
and the PD,
so I think that's
PD
why
stuff,
he's not a fan.
I think that the larger question is about what are the actual limiting principles. And part of what I was trying to tell Wick earlier today is that political pragmatism is not a limiting principle. Political pragmatism changes with every election, with every cycle, and the concern that I have is that like the brakes are off the train. Like I actually don't think that I think that what happens is that when James reads his fucking speech to Wick's audience, there's going to be a lot of people whose reaction is, that's a very bad idea. It's going to hurt us electorally. We can't do that. But we're not morally opposed to it. We just think it's a bad. I don't think there's enough people who are going to feel moral revulsion when someone proposes an idea that is just contrary by any metric to our founding values. It's just, there should be an instinctual, what the fuck are you, I shouldn't need a reason to reject it. I should reject it instinctually. And I don't think that exists on the left right now.
Indulge me a second. I truly think some liberals have HIV, like metaphorically and politically, okay, when it comes to leftists or whatever. They actually do not have an immune system that is capable of recognizing and rejecting leftist politics. And so, for instance, Zoran Mamdani had this quote that was deeply disconcerting to me, and it didn't even register to liberals, which was basically, it was there is no problem too big for government to tackle, and there is no problem too small for government to care about. And I was like, oh my God, that is just a total pretext for utopian Orwellian nanny state baloney. And then what was it? Zoran had a good interview or something, and Jesse was like, yeah, Zoran, my boy. And I was just thinking to myself, it's aren't you the king anti-leftist liberal? Aren't you the guy who says mixed economy capitalism is the jam and we should be effectively rejecting leftists? But then it seems like he only rejects a leftist if they're mean. And I'm like, that shouldn't be the barometer upon which we reject leftism. There can be plenty of nice socialists and communists, but we shouldn't be, predicating our rejection of them on whether or not they're kind.
Yeah, Justice Thomas had this incredible line in his speech where he said, I might be paraphrasing, but I think I'm doing a pretty good justice. You cannot consent to a violation of natural law. The idea being that in the hierarchy of American values, securing our natural rights is first. By the consent of the governed through a democratic process is the means by which the end is achieved, right? Sure. If everybody voted to violate natural law, it would still be wrong, right? The problem with socialism and communism, the red herring is, oh shit, we're not going to do a violent revolution this time, you guys. We promise we're the good communists. That's actually not the problem. The problem is that the idea is fucking bad. The idea is contrary to natural law, and as a result, ought be rejected. The violent revolution is the cherry on the bad idea cake. It certainly makes it worse, but it's not like that's actually not conceptually the issue.
The thing that I want to hit you with, though, and then we can obviously move into call-ins or the next segment of whatever. But basically, my thing is, I agree with Andrew Wilson in reference to force doctrine. I don't agree with his take on force doctrine, but I just believe it's politically descriptive of reality. Of if you have a natural right, let's say there's a natural orientation to the way that human beings should exist, and you have these rights with or without God, or not with or without God, but with God and without government. If a society votes that you don't have that right, and then they override your right of what use is the right. Now, it's good in an ideological sense to keep as a proverbial North Star through which to orient society, but ultimately you still have to contend with the fact that a right that you can't enforce is basically a privilege.
Well,
and so that gets frustrating.
Well, legal rights and moral rights are different things. And natural laws is a set of moral rights and moral duties. Right? It's a moral claim. The reason that Andrew Wilson deploys force doctrine all the time is that he's trying to get leftists to admit that they have no ethical, moral foundation for their claims. And once they admit that, then he's going to say, well, it's just a preference. I have a different preference. So how come my preferences don't get enacted into law rather than yours? There's no reason. That's what he's driving at. He doesn't.
Yeah, but isn't that kind of silly? I'm not trying to have you debate Andrew by proxy, but isn't it kind of silly to say like human flourishing is an incorrect like moral intuition? Like, so for instance, like James, let's say I'm James, and James says, well, I don't believe in God and I don't believe in natural rights, but I believe in maximizing human flourishing. Why can't that be an orienting principle upon which to build your political ideology?
I'm stealing his argument right now because he used this on Delahunty. So
yeah, you don't have to defend it on his behalf.
I'm going to steal valor because it's a good argument. It's fun. Okay, let's assume human flourishing is the metric. It turns out that I believe human flourishing is maximized by doing exactly what I was saying about natural law.
Sure.
So the problem with human flourishing is it's such an open-ended metric that when you decide how to measure it, you decide what human flourishing is, right? Like,
but hold on. There's an appeal here, though, because I'm technocratic. Like, so for instance, like if I could CRISPR babies, I would CRISPR babies. If I could sterilize James, I might. He seems like a nice guy, so I mean, maybe not. Maybe he could be the nice communist that doesn't get sterilized.
Just someone else has to raise my kids. How about that?
Right. So long, but when we look at like, if we agree that we're biological organisms, which I hope we can agree on descriptively, then it seems like two metrics for human flourishing would be like longevity and vitality. So how long you live and the quality of the life that you do live while you're alive. And so that can be, I understand that you could make arguments for other measurements of human well-being, but if we could take a look at like, so let's say, and this might even back Andrew Wilson up. Let's say that you were like a nihilist hedonist drug addict and your vitality was amazing for 5 years, and then your longevity plummeted into the dirt. Well, that's probably not a good way to live your life.
Why not?
And then let's say that Christians.
Why not?
And then they live to, well, hold on. And they live, because I think longevity and vitality have to be balanced against each other. So let's say that you have Christians, and Christians like live to be 85, disproportionately have good social relationships, they're good community members, they have progeny, they're economically productive, they're socially productive. You just look at sociological metric after sociological metric, and it seems like even like culturally Christian people who vaguely follow the Bible are actually the best off in reference to longevity and vitality. Then could we not make an inference to say, okay, we actually need a Christian theocracy or something because we need to maximize longevity and vitality. And James is actually wrong about what he thinks causes longevity and vitality.
Sure. The point I'm making about human flourishing is that all the work is done by the selection criteria. You have to decide how to measure human flourishing. When you measure it, you're importing a value system. And that value system determines how you measure the flourishing. You also have to decide what the time scale is. Are we talking about 50 years, 500 years, 1,000 years? It's pretty different. So for example, like maybe I believe that when people take a lot of drugs and live life to the fullest, they live more in those 5 years than they would have in the 60 years that comes after. And actually the drug addicts are right. Like if I define the
we
term,
sterilize those people.
but if I define the terms correctly, human flourishing doesn't do anything to say that I'm wrong in that scenario. Like another great example that comes up all the time is like, what if the Christians are right? What if you have, if you have gay marriage, you're going to go to hell? Well, then it turns out no amount of human flourishing matters because you're going to be punished for eternity in the afterlife. So like the way you measure the flourishing is completely determinative of what the outcome is. It's an open-ended system, and it just boils down to importing your preferences with a bunch of faux math. And like it doesn't actually do anything. It's just ultimately
I
preference-based.
don't agree, only because I can agree to the fact that it is subjective. So for instance, if we talk to a 21-year-old at Coachella, then they're probably going to have the preference that you articulated of, well, I'm just going to do ecstasy and bang a bunch of people because I'm going to live more in the next 5 years than I'm going to live in the next 60. Okay. But then my subjective of balancing longevity and vitality, I think actually comes from like a healthy chunk of analysis of human history and psychology and well-being and all that kind of crap. And so I think we can make value judgments of what's a better system. And then like what you said with where it's like, do we measure this on a 5-year scale, a decade-long scale, a intergenerational scale, a 1,000-year scale? That I would say, like, you should maximize the scale that you're measuring this shit out on, obviously, because we're a species that's perpetuated ourselves for 100,000 years. So why wouldn't we want to perpetuate ourselves for another 100,000? So hold on. So I just want to agree with you that it's subjective, but I do not agree that it's arbitrary. And I think those are different terms with different connotations.
Well, I mean, like, look at like, does abortion rights create more or less human flourishing? I could argue that easily, both sides, without prep. Does gay marriage create more or less human flourishing? Easy. You could argue it from both sides, no prep. Trans rights, like you take any social issue, it's only clear if you load up the value system with your own values and then say, because my own values are being achieved, that's what I call human flourishing. And
but that's where I would appeal to the Democratic. I would appeal to the system of the Democratic Republic in order to determine how we collectively value human flourishing. So, for instance, like with abortion or whatever, I think that the balance in the rights comes from the left is going to argue that the rights of the mother presuppose or preempt the rights of the fetus. The right wing is going to argue that the rights of the fetus presuppose the rights of the mother. But the truth is that there's probably a balance between these rights. So we as a society should argue what the balance between these two rights are and then determine it through legislation. And so I'm not saying that but through abortion legislation, we have somehow ultimately aligned ourselves with the moral order, like the natural order, but we could try.
So if I managed to get a coalition, I'm using myself in the hypothetical because it makes the clickbait more fun. If I got organized a coalition of people and 50, it's actually not 51. It's a constitutional amendment proof majority. I have enough people that will vote however I tell them, and they're going to do whatever I want, and then we can amend the Constitution however I want. Totally through the democratic process. And we have determined amongst ourselves that we think human flourishing is maximized if we reenact slavery. Like, yes, it's shitty for the people who are slaves, but we're not doing it by race. We're doing it by people.
But we did the utils. We did the utils, and we know that we can enslave the socialists and it'll be fine.
Did you ever self-identify as a communist? If so, you are now enslaved, and your free labor is going to actually produce more utility for us. And in fact, since we don't believe in the equal moral worth of humans, the utilities that go to you are kind of discounted anyway because you're subhuman.
Right.
But my utilities are worth more because we don't have equal moral worth. So it's actually net benefit on a human flourishing utilitarian standard to enslave the communists. And I mean, is there a limiting principle that would come into place there?
No. What's funny is I would appeal to your limiting principle.
Of course you would. Of course you would.
And I would say, hey, we wrote this document 250 years ago where regardless of whether or not it's descriptively true, we enshrined in our society that human beings have equal moral worth. And regardless of whether or not I think it's true, I think it produces a better society. Therefore, even if it's not true, we should continue to pretend as though humans have equal moral worth,
and
therefore.
That's
that's
Connor.
weirdly enough that would be Thomas's arguments, right? Even with democratic override, then no, we should not do this.
And that's
guys,
exactly.
if you guys want to move into the game or move into the the college or whatever, we can do it. I was just arguing with Ryan because it was funny and interesting.
That quickly because that's exactly
absolutely.
Thomas's point. We circled perfectly to Thomas's point. That's exactly it. And that's why, and I know, Connor, you've heard me read this before, so I apologize, but I have to do it. Calvin Coolidge, on the 150th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, said the following: "If all men are created equal, that is final. If they are endowed with inalienable rights, that is final. If governments derive their just power from the consent of the governed, that is final. No advance, no progress can be made beyond these propositions. If anyone wishes to deny their truth and their soundness, the only direction in which he can proceed historically is not forward, but backward, toward the time when there was no equality, no rights of the individual, no rule of the people. Those who wish to proceed in that direction cannot lay claim to progress. They are reactionary." And we got there in the course of one hypothetical. So well done, us.
Beautiful. A boulder rolling down the hill of a conversation, and what better to stop its momentum than to let it hit the bottom of that hill. And just in time for some call-ins. We've got a few people waiting in the waiting room. I will be damned if we don't play any podcaster prisoner president tonight, but perhaps first, since he's been waiting for about 10 minutes, we should bring in our mutual friend to everybody here, Grassroots Hegemon.
Hey, Grassroots.
Ooh.
Grassroots, you're on the Marketplace of Ideas. Good to see you, sir.
Welcome, neighbor.
Oh,
It's good to see you, though I'm deeply disappointed that you're not oiling one of our streams right now. But, good to see you, buddy.
I said non-option.
What's that?
Oh,
Grassroots.
do we lose
Can't
him
quite
as
hear
soon as
ya.
we gained him?
Oh my goodness. Well, let's give
By
him
the
a
way,
second.
I think the reason that he's not oiling either of you is because he spent his self-allotted weekly amount
Across all the channels.
yeah, well, yeah, he was. I think he used it because he was triggered by Pisco, is what he said earlier.
Yeah,
which is an
all Pisco has
Yeah,
to do is show up and be
I literally,
infuriating for prolonged
quite literally cannot. I cannot give you money right now.
I really feel like this is a fucked up business model. All Pisco has to do is say some nonsense commie bullshit, and you're gonna pay him
Pleasure
like
to meet you. I can hear each of you intermittently, and you're hearing me intermittently. Hey,
Okay.
fuck you, Ryan. You've gotten enough. but no,
fair. That's fair.
no. Do I
Yeah.
sound like shit? Oh.
I can hear you.
Here, let
No, we
me.
can hear you.
Let me count 50.
we're getting a little muffled.
So do we think Pisco's business model on some level is just triggering Grassroots until he forks up the cash
No,
to yell at him?
not-
Yes, but I
not
kind of
self-
do that to Doobie, so I can't impugn him too
No.
much. Now, I am sharing my earnestly, terribly formed ideas and opinions to trigger Doobie.
That's what
So
matters at the
I
end
don't
of
know
the
if
day.
Pisco's pretending
What
to be
the
triggering.
fuck is happening right now?
Grass.
No, quite literally, YouTube will. Yeah, and then I call him a fat bitch for 5 hours, and I
You get
lose
$20
$800.
super chats.
Hey, money well spent. Money well
That is
spent.
how that works.
All right, Grassroots, do you have a question or something to add to the
Yeah.
conversation?
It's very easy to get money out of me. It really does. Just
Don't admit that on the air, man. Come on now. Okay.
no, I no.
If Pisco hears this, you're gonna be bankrupt in no time. He's just
I
gonna
would call
bait you
Pisco's
over
mother.
and over.
I would call Pisco's mother, send her a letter in the mail.
Okay.
Wait, saying what? What would the letter say?
Yeah, do it. All right, wait, Grassroots. Do you have something to add to this conversation that we've been having, or a question for either of our two guests, brother?
Or you can play a round of our next game with us if you'd like.
Yeah, oh yeah. That's not a bad
yeah,
idea.
all right, fuck it. Yeah, yeah.
Alrighty.
We'll
Let's
jump
do it.
into the greatest achievement that I have ever taken part of in my life. This is a game that we here on the Marketplace of Ideas.
I'm hearing what I said like fucking 9 minutes behind.
Oh yeah,
No.
you might want to
Yeah,
mute the stream if you're going to also talk on the stream. It's a very disorienting thing to have to deal with both of those things. We have a game that we hear.
Oh no!
Oh.
Oh, I did have double stream open, but it was
There
open
we
in
are.
my sidewall somehow. Sorry,
hopefully it's sorted there, and
sorry
we
if
can hear
I
you a
was
little bit better.
talking over myself.
All good, all good. We have a game that we call Podcaster, Prisoner, President. Podcaster, Prisoner, Resident. Beautiful. It's a real show. Okay, the game is much like it sounds, like the game Fuck, Marry, Kill, where we sort 3 people into various categories. And we've got some stipulations for each role here. For the president, we expect whoever we put into this role to take on all of the responsibilities, all of the authority, and all the restraints insofar as they exist of the American president. For podcaster, we expect whoever we put there to have a sizable audience with which to espouse their opinions and spread their influence. And whoever ends up in prison, we are shutting them down for good, and we will not hear from them again. To be clear, we're not necessarily advocating that anybody actually go to prison unless stated otherwise. Now, for our first round of Podcaster, Prisoner, President, since we have our call-in guest here, Grassroots Hegemon, I'm going to leave it to you. Shall we go political, American politics, Geopol, or Star Wars? Or streamers?
I'm actually happy with any of the 3 of those. I'm
Well,
happy.
then-
And Connor already knows that I am going to marry, fuck, General
Again,
Grievous. Yeah, I've made
to be
the case
clear,
repeatedly
we're not
that
fucking
General
anybody.
Grievous is the hero.
We're
General
trying.
Grievous is the
Huge
hero of Star Wars.
separatist.
No.
Rebelling against the
Yeah.
central government over taxation is his jam.
We understand that fuck, marry, kill are not the categories. Grassroots understands that. He's doing it anyway.
He's gonna do it anyways.
Brilliant. Well, seeing as how
Think of
we've-
what those 4 arms could do, Ryan. It's just that.
You know what? With all of this being said, I think that decides which direction we're going. We are going Star Wars for our first round. And who is up for our first name? General Grievous. How about that?
Nice.
General Grievous, the killer of Jedis, despite not being force sensitive, wielder of multiple lightsabers, and
Mary.
general all-around badass. Who we have
Mary.
for person
My
number 2?
husband.
We've got Boba Fett. The much celebrated and yet not very often seen on screen, at the very least for the original trilogy. But my goodness, does that armor look cool? And in the final chair, we've got none other than Darth Vader. What more needs to be said about him? How do we sort these 3 characters?
I'm
Who's
marrying
answering
General Grievous. It's very easy for me. Like, it's,
Okay.
What do you
That's
want him as
very
president? Or
linear.
you want him as podcaster?
oh no, I president General Grievous can be president, yeah. And
Okay,
then I
God
would
help
I
us
would
all.
have
God help us
I
all,
would have
indeed.
and then I would have Darth Vader as the podcaster.
The child murderer, Darth Vader, gets to have a podcast.
Yeah.
We get to listen to his breathing the entire time. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well,
he's
that
not a good
leaves
one.
Boba Fett,
Well, I'm not a good one either.
an
so.
indoctrinated child, to go to prison for what is decidedly the least amount of crimes amongst these 3 characters.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck 'em. Fuck 'em.
Connor-
That's not my problem. That's not my
Very
problem.
well. Connor, Ryan,
That's a him issue.
I know mine. I know mine off the top of my head because I actually have a side hustle channel, Counterpoint Star Wars, that everybody should check out as well. So I'm actually
you might.
I'm really sucked into the lore. So basically, I want Darth Vader for president. I really do, because there's this whole speech by Anakin at the end where he's like, "I brought peace and justice to my new empire," and it's like, I want to give him a shot at governing. You know, Sidious never gave him a shot to truly govern. He was just like the military arm of the empire, whereas he was raised as a slave. He was a messiah. His mom died as a slave. he saw the corruption of the Republic and the Jedi Order. So for all I know, if he actually got his stuff together, he could be a benevolent dictator like Tito out of Yugoslavia. So he actually could have been a benevolent dictator. So
you never get to bully me for my opinions on General Grievous ever the fuck again. Okay, I want to.
Well, right, you are.
that shit is out the fucking window.
But Boba Fett, I would want on the podcast because I do think that he would basically like he would always have a story to tell, right? He'd be like, oh, I was on this, bounty this one day and I had to go get like a Twi'lek, bounty hunter. And, then I met her sex slave and blah, blah, like he would always have like some crazy story about bounty hunting. And then Grievous by default, obviously is prisoner or whatever. But then with Grievous, Grassroots will never admit this, or if he does, he'll just sweep it. Dude's like I will sweep it. Yeah, I'm about genocidal right monster. Now. Like his lore is that in the beginning of his name was Quiman Jai Shalil. He was a part of the Kali people. The Kali people were getting genocided by an insectoid race. And then he started genociding the insects, the sentient and sapient insects, and the Republic and the Jedi had to come stop him, which is why he hates the Jedi, because the Jedi wouldn't let him complete a genocide. So Grassroots, he just likes him because he fights the central government over taxation. But realistically, General Grievous is like a horrible war criminal who makes Anakin Skywalker and Darth Sidious looks relatively chill.
Look,
we all got some skeletons.
A guy murdered a few dozen teenagers, and everybody gets all fucked up about it. I don't know.
Ryan,
just fucking relax.
I think Connor convinced me about the General Grievous point, but I'm going to switch Vader and Boba Fett. I want a good old-fashioned capitalist in the White House. I want a smuggler. I want a man who understands how to make $1. And a
not child murderer, perhaps.
Yeah, the capitalist thing more, but yeah.
Oh, no, he's definitely a child murderer. Then, almost all these people are child murderers.
I think people are sleeping on the James Earl Jones voice as a podcaster.
Oh yeah,
good point.
That's
good
a
point.
That's
solid.
True. I had not.
And then, if they talk shit, for example, imagine if I had dark force powers and James started talking about fucking communism, and halfway through his speech, I could just choke the shit out of him through the monitor with my, I feel like that's good content. People would want to watch that.
Content. That's true. Solid. No, you're right. You're right. No, I think Ryan made a good case. Now, I'd flip my two.
Okay. Yeah, so wait, to be clear, are you keeping
Vader would be the podcaster.
Okay.
And I don't actually give a shit what happens to Boba Fett.
I guess he stays. But I would keep in prison.
Grievous is still president. Yeah.
Very well. Well, unfortunately, we couldn't move you on that. Grassroots, thank you so much for calling in.
That's okay.
Wait, Cal, do we have another sci-fi round, or is this the only sci-fi round you made?
We've got a couple sci-fi rounds, but we've also got another caller in the waiting room, and I'd hate to keep them waiting.
I don't want to hold anybody up.
And
it was lovely to talk to you guys.
Absolutely. And here on the Marketplace of Ideas, we like to give out the official fake currency of the Marketplace of Ideas. We call it Grift Coin, and generally we give up to 1,000 Grift Coin to our callers. So I'll leave it to Ryan and Connor. How much Grift Coin should we give to Grassroots?
Easily
here?
1,000. Yeah, I think he was able to justify his lore reason. Obviously, he's in love with General Grievous, but he was still able to justify his lore reasons pretty astutely.
I mean, the man spent.
Ryan, I hope you're in agreement there.
The man spent $500 to tell Pisco to go fuck himself. Give him some Grift Coin. Yeah, fill up the bank.
Very well. Well, some fake money to make up for your loss of real money, Grassroots. And thank you again so much for calling in. We hope to chat with you soon again. All right, buddy?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Have a good one.
Take care, neighbor.
All right.
Enjoy the show.
Later, Grassroots. Okay. What a great round of podcaster, prisoner, president. Hopefully we'll have time for more after we get done talking with our next caller. We've got Stephen.
Just real quick first, I'd just like to check in
Sure.
with our guests here. You know, we've been here for 2 hours. How much more do you guys think you got?
Oh, yeah, good point.
Another
I probably
half
got
an
till
hour or so?
10:45. I do have some unfortunately stringent responsibilities tomorrow, and I actually do have something I have to do tonight. But I got another 30 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay,
I bet
very
that
good.
sounds about right.
Excellent.
Perfect. Well, Stephen Helicopter will hopefully not take up all the time we have for Podcaster Prisoner President, because my goodness, do I enjoy playing that game. But for now, Stephen Helicopter. Stephen, you are on the marketplace of ideas. How are you doing,
First-time
sir?
caller, welcome, Stephen.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, welcome.
Hey, bud.
What's up?
Wait, can you
Stephen,
see- can you hear me?
we can see your hat. It looks like a red hat, perhaps in solidarity with James Vagabond here.
Okay, cool. How you guys doing?
Doing
Pretty
good.
Hanging
Welcome to
in
the
there,
Marketplace
sir.
of Ideas.
Yeah, what have you got for
us?
us?
Do you have a question for us, or would you like to play Podcaster Prisoner President?
Yeah, I've got a question for Ryan McBolally.
What's up, buddy?
Here's my question: is when the revolution comes about and we communists take control of the country.
Mhm.
Let's say we revived the Project MK Ultra, and then this time, could you stop laughing, please? It's successful, and we figure out how to mind control people. Where are your natural rights now?
So your argument is that you occupy the moral high ground because you plan on brainwashing society to be your puppets.
That's not what I said. That's not what I asked. I said, where's your natural rights now?
The natural rights.
His argument is, if you could brainwash someone out of having free will,
Yeah,
then technically you could take away one of their inalienable rights.
sure. You don't
Yes.
need to be that clever. You could just fucking kill them also, which is what typically happens. But yeah, your rights are God-given. Man cannot take them away.
That's not true because God's not real.
Okay.
It makes sense to me that you're a communist. Sure.
Stephen Helicopter, are you by chance the gentleman who was posting in the YouTube chat under the name Joseph Stalin?
No, that's got to be another guy.
Another guy? Okay,
Yeah.
just want to
We're
make sure.
coming for you. We're up. The bottom's coming for the top.
But this is
be
oh
prepared
boy.
for revolution.
no. This is perfect. This when people say that, like, don't worry about it. We atheists will settle on a good morality. We'll focus on human flourishing. Meet your new overlord, dumbass in the red hat with his MK Ultra.
no.
Which one?
Hold
Which
on.
one?
Yeah,
Which dumbass are we talking about?
Well,
We got two
no.
options here.
It was on
Yeah,
purpose.
how's
'Cause take your pick, because here's the thing. It starts with your speeches and it ends with this jackass. And it,
Okay,
happens,
but how-
and it happens the same every fucking time. It happens the
How's
same
that better?
every fucking time when you move away from what is inalienable and true.
So how's that better than what you're doing right now with capitalist exploitation? How is that better than what
How is
happened
that
to
better
Great
than mind control and servitude?
Yeah, I don't know if you made a great case so far, Stephen.
No, I mean,
and you know what? Disavow. That is not my project.
is this
I
one?
align with
James?
liberals over this man any day.
Is this one- is
I
this-
align
is
with
this one of
liberals
the
over
good
this man
communists,
every
James?
day. Not at all. Not doing great so far. I'm sure there's some things that we could agree on. I don't think his intention here was to say that he intends to create mind control devices. I think he was just going for a bit of a dunk on the concept of inalienable rights to give him the best credit, but I don't know if he's earned that credit.
It
at
does
all.
completely debunk the idea of natural rights, but I mean, theoretically, if it's possible, it's probably better than a re-education camp.
Okay, so let me put it this way. I have the
I'm against both of those
I
things.
have the MK Ultra drug, and I get to do whatever I want with it. Should I? Do you think it's a good thing for me to do it?
I mean, it's your personal choice.
It's my choice. Is it a good thing? If I have the MK Ultra drug and I can make you my capitalist plaything willingly, you'll be delighted to be my capitalist plaything. Is that a good thing? Should I do that?
No.
Why not?
Because you're still you're still retaining an order, a hierarchy of class.
Why is that a bad
Of
thing?
economic class.
I'm going to make you like it. I'm going to do the MK Ultra drugs. You're going to love having a hierarchy of class. What's the problem?
Well, I can't argue with that. I mean, so you get your MK Ultra device, I get my MK Ultra device. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and what we've exposed in 30 seconds of questioning is that this is an ideology that has no moral framework and is simply about the expression of power.
Yeah, but yours is based on an imaginary sky daddy.
Congratulations. You've now explained why communism always turns into despotic hellscapes, no matter how well-intentioned the people are, because the ideology that you are espousing has no moral framework other than power and preference, as is obvious in a minor back and forth with you.
Yeah, but yours is made up. Yours is just made up.
Okay, let's grant that mine's made up. It's still fucking better than yours because at least it has limiting principles.
No, it's not, because
yours is literally just power because I said
so.
Yours,
there's still the capitalist at the top.
There's
still the capitalist at the top who's exploiting people and taking all the resources. How is that conducive to liberty?
Because if you asked me, is it wrong to use the MK Ultra device? I would say yes, because I value your equal moral worth despite your obvious mental retardation.
Well, I guess the difference between you and I is that I believe in justice and you don't.
Yeah. Because you believe in justice, you are pro-brainwashing, and because I don't believe in justice, I'm opposed to brainwashing. James,
no, you just believe in capitalist exploitation.
This is not abnormal. This is like very, very standard how this ideology evolves.
Oh, James, back me up, bro.
Yeah, James, back him up, bro.
You haven't done a great
James,
job.
Back him up, bro. Here's your comrade. Back him up, James.
Yeah. All right, if anybody gets the wall, it's actually
Hey,
communists like him, okay? I kind of understand now where everybody's coming from.
Can we do a PPP? Can we do a round of PPP?
Sure.
You want to do a PPP with us?
We'll allow it.
Yep.
We'll allow it.
All right, very well. Well, I'll leave it to you again. Podcaster, prisoner, president. We've got American politics, geopol, streamers, or Star Wars.
Ooh.
Let's do another round of Star Wars.
Another round of Star Wars. Very well, coming right up. And I see we've got another caller hanging in the
I think
rafters.
that's
They're not the
Grassroots
rafters. Is it? No, we've got somebody else. They're a different name than Grassroots at the very least. Very well. Deeper cut for the Star Wars fans out there. We've got 3 more characters with which to sort. First up, we've got Bib Fortuna, the right-hand man to Jabba the Hutt. We've got in the middle column, we've got Max Rebo, leader of the Max Rebo band, house band of Jabba's Palace. And then in the final category, or in the final column rather, we've got Salacious B. Crumb, the court jester of Jabba's Palace. Hey, I thought about putting Droopy McCool in as one of the selections. So I figured he might be too
I'm
deep for most
actually
people.
struggling, but I'll come up with an answer. But this is a tough one. Go ahead.
All right. Well, Steven, why don't you go first? Yeah. What have you got?
Okay. First of all, Bib Fortuna, podcaster.
That was my instinct. Yeah, he's got to know.
We need to hear what
he's got to know how to talk to people.
Gotta change layers, bro.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm getting used to the intricate program that is Microsoft Paint. All right.
Connor's an expert. He knows exactly what went wrong there. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so I was gonna put Max Rebo as president until I saw that Salacious B. Crumb was the last one. So Salacious B. Crumb, president.
Dude, this is like I was kind of thinking they're being really mean to you and saying that you deserve the wall and you're dumb and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, no, he's just, he's misguided. And then you put
this is
Max Rebo.
Now we know.
You gotta go to prison.
Absolutely proves it. Yep.
I would
Connor,
MK Ultra you for these answers.
I'm gonna just immediately rearrange these. Connor, give us a better answer than what this. Just told us.
So I'm gonna tell you, I'm torn. Salacious B. Crumb is nasty to me. Just his whole vibe is repulsive. He's skeletal. He laughs weird. He's gross. That dude's going in prison.
Tell us about his backstory. I don't know much about him.
He's literally just like a chittering imp on the side of Jabba the Hutt.
Yes,
people are getting eaten by the Rancor, he's just like, oh.
Yes,
like,
at threat of the end of his life if he doesn't do it. This is one thing they
put him in prison. I don't care.
All right,
no,
fine.
He's an imp. He does not deserve to be president or a podcaster. Okay, now I'm gonna tell you my struggle right here. Okay, Bib Fortuna has been Jabba the Hutt's right-hand man for years, maybe decades, and has survived one of the most aggressive and violent political courts in the galaxy. So, on one hand, he does have a lot of interesting stories to tell. And Max Rebo would be a more kind-hearted president, but maybe you want a competent president, particularly in a galaxy as harsh as the Star Wars galaxy. So actually, I'll put Bib Fortuna in the presidency, even though he's probably a scumbag. I'm not denying he's a scumbag.
Definitely he's a scumbag. Yeah,
and then Max Rebo for podcaster, just because he's probably a chill dude. He could probably have a lot of cool interviews about like music and culture and all that kind of stuff. Now, if you told me that Bib Fortuna was going to be like an evil president, then I would swap Max Rebo and Bib Fortuna. But for my analysis of the information I have right now, this is my PPP.
That hurts me. Max, as a band leader, I feel like he's got, well, whatever. It's not, I'm not the
He's
guest.
got leadership skills.
Well, he does, but maybe not as much as Bib Fortuna. But I don't want to get in the way of Ryan's opinion. Ryan, do you have a differentiating opinion between what we've got so far?
Well, look, if we're doing this game, we're in Nero fiddling while Rome burns territory. So you got so you have to take that into account when you make that list. So if we're gonna do that, I'm just gonna be vindictive and vibes based because there's really nothing left to do. So
Fair enough.
Bib goes to prison because I think he's a bad dude. I can't prove it. I don't know. Purely vibes.
No, he's a bad dude.
You're
not wrong.
He goes to jail. Salacious B. Crumb gets a podcast because, historically jesters, the metric of a good jester was whether they could leap and fart and whistle simultaneously. And if that's not good content, I don't know what is. Like that, so
Okay.
I feel like he gets a podcast, and Max Rebo can play us a fine tune as the country burns to hell, which is probably the best we're getting at any of these guys.
I didn't
Perhaps the
say
whole
my
galaxy.
answer, I would have answered it your way. You answered beautifully.
This is, in my opinion, the correct answer. So I'm glad that we have at the very least ended this particular round on this layout.
Wait,
Steven,
real quick.
Yep.
I want to say that I would maximize for Bib Fortuna podcast just for the opening, which would be me podcast so goody.
maybe so. There'd be some lines with Bib Fortuna running a podcast. For
I was
sure.
about to say, if Salacious is running it, Bib Fortuna could just do some sound bites for him. They used to be boys in Jabba's court.
Yeah, get a soundboard going.
Yeah, maybe he'll be allowed out of whatever awful prison he gets sent to for an occasional
That was
episode.
a ridiculous
The
loud
Spice
round.
Mines of Kessel.
It was intended to be a ridiculous round and perfect for a ridiculous guest. Stephen Helicopter, thank you so much for calling in. You're
Give him 500. Give
Give
him
him
750. Give the man some
Okay.
Griff coin. Okay.
No.
Yeah,
He wants to push immediately for a stateless, classless, moneyless society, and I say that's what we give him. No money.
Viva
Well,
la revolution.
Oh,
Thanks for having me
that
on,
is
guys.
backstabbing ass shit.
oh my goodness.
Welcome to the horrors.
I would say I applaud his stones for coming onto the show, where a lot of my chat is willing to talk endless smack about Ryan, but few of them have the stones to actually come confront him on voice.
True.
So I think he deserves 500 just for coming and confronting him on voice.
We've got a vote for 500. We've got a vote from James for 0. But Ryan, you're the one who took the brunt of this particular endurance trial. What do you say?
I like Connor. I appreciate the balls, but unlike Connor, I am unwilling to reward fucking communists. Get capitalized, bitch. You get nothing. You get nothing. In fact, you owe me. He owes me 50 Griff.
Welcome to a moneyless society.
And the VIG is running, motherfucker. Capitalism.
We don't need money. We don't need money because we've got compassion and love
Hey,
and
interest
respect.
on your loans with your compassion, you bitch. Get the fuck out
All
of here.
right. Steven, sorry about your luck, my friend, but no fake money for you. But we appreciate you coming on tonight, all right?
Thanks,
All
buddy.
right, thanks for having me on.
All right. My
Thank you,
goodness.
brother.
Steven Helicopter. Do you guys think he's a real communist?
Maybe he could just be
Yeah,
LARPing a little bit
he
for the
could
show
be.
or whatever.
One-
but
I mean, I'll lean into the kayfabe. It's all right.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing. He's not a real helicopter. That's for damn sure.
right. But the
What if he
thing that
identifies as
he
one?
articulated, though, is a real thing, in my opinion, which is effectively like, if you do not buy into the God of Spinoza, the naturalist God, then like the presuppositional arguments of natural law kind of fall apart. And by the way, I'm a deist, so the inferential chain that Ryan makes, it's easier for me to say I either believe it or I think we should act as though we believe it because I see the fruits of this belief and the fruits are good. But I think that especially with an increasingly secularizing society, it's kind of a tall ask to be. A lot of people they don't take religion seriously. They dismiss it as pure mythology. They're actually incredibly hostile to it, like all that kind of stuff. So saying that like my political project is predicated on a belief in a deistic creator, I think it's going to be a tough sell for a lot of people.
I respect that, though. It's interesting because I did a spot with Andrew Wilson recently, and like the Crucible audience is like deeply receptive because they're religious, right? So there is like obviously like there's a religious aspect to it. I would say on the flip side, his hypo, if we're going to give maximum credibility, was if I had the power to do anything I want, why shouldn't I? That's what it boils down to.
Sure.
And he's going to say, and if I do it, it's going to maximize well-being. How do I know? Because that's what I think will maximize well-being. And on the flip side, my answer is I shouldn't do that because whether or not you trace it back to a God or not, I actually believe people have equal moral worth. So I shouldn't mind control them. I shouldn't take away their freedom. I shouldn't make them my puppets. Like there's actually a limiting moral principle there about what it means to be humans. And it's very interesting because people poke at it. They're like, oh, what if it's not true? What if it's not true? But then as happened with us, Connor, the second the shoe's on the other foot, they go, oh, holy shit. No. Equal moral worth. I didn't mean me getting mind controlled. I meant the situation.
Well, and I think that's so funny.
No,
I'm trying to test the limits of the truth claims of your statements or whatever. But then the two, communists immediately are like, no, we reject the whole framework. Let's burn it down to the ground. I have no limiting principles besides what I believe is correct. Let's go beyond the vision of the founding fathers. They were a bunch of cowards. And I'm like, guys, like this was Ryan's exact argument. Can you not manifest?
We've done you no favors. Like, we've given like all of the advantage
into reality of Ryan's argumentation. It's crazy.
Yes, we've set you up horribly for your next conversation. So for that, we do apologize. But for being here, we of course thank you very much. We've got 15 more
can I just splash?
Oh, sure.
One thing?
Absolutely. Yes.
Grassroots, thank you for splashing the pot on my channel. He wanted to point out that General Grievous would have made a great chancellor. President is not exalted enough. He needs to be chancellor. So
Chancellor of the Republic, indeed.
Emperor.
He is on one about General Grievous. I did not realize that about him. Well, we've got 15 more minutes with our two guests, and we've got one more caller, and hopefully, perhaps, if we're lucky, time for one more round of Podcaster Prisoner President. We've got Crusader Danny coming into the show. Crusader Danny, welcome to Marketplace of Ideas.
Hey, thank you for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
Hey, what's up?
Thank you for having me. What's up, Connor? What's up, Ryan?
What's up, buddy?
All right, I have a question for both Ryan and Connor. Is Christianity compatible with nationalism? You could go Connor first or Ryan first, whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so hold on. I'll say this. So there's two ways to interpret. I'll try to be as brief as I can. I think that Christianity is compatible with nationalism because nationalism effectively, like whenever I hear the word nation, I replace it with the word people. And so you can identify, and I think that even Christendom, the establishment of a Christian society in the Eastern Roman Empire or whatever, it's not purely conflicting with the Bible. The reason why is because there were Old Testament kingdoms in the Old Testament, obviously, Israel, right. Judea, all that kind of stuff. And then not just that, but effectively as a people, Christians are called to, obviously like poverty, anti-materialism, humility, all that kind of stuff. But they're also called to effectuate a better justice on the material plane. Now, I think the reason why Christianity and nationalism can be antithetical, I'm not saying it purely is, but I think it can be, is because Christ often calls his followers to reject the material, reject the political, reject the mundane. There's obviously the scripture of like, render unto Caesar what is Caesar, render unto gods what is God's. And so if you extrapolate that statement out, then and also, turning the other cheek, and he who lives by the sword dies by the sword. There seems to be a rejection of the material plane, and effectively, like any political material concerns should be a shadow of your spiritual concerns.
Right. Not only material, but race. Like they also could be described as, like you said. Because it's not.
Well, yeah. So,
like,
so I think you can,
because like I see like ethno nationalism different as pure nationalism, right? Because like you said, nationalism, it's the people. It has nothing to do with race or yeah.
A lot of ethno-nationalists will make the argument that the ethnos, which is like a shared culture, heritage, language, et cetera, is presumed within the word nation. But then if you also look at like ancient polities like Rome, Rome was a multi-ethnic empire. And so what I would say is that you can have civic nationalism, and I think the United States is identified as a civic nationalist project, where effectively what makes us a people is our subscription to American ideals. You can have an ethno-nationalist, which again is like culture, heritage, language, etc. And then I think you could also argue for Christian nationalism, the same way that Muslims argue for universal Islamic theocracy, what they refer to as like the Ummah, where you treat the Christian people as a collective body that should be advocated for politically. So it gets really ugly because oftentimes when you have Christian nationalists, they fall in love with secular material and financial power, which is like antithetical to the message of Christ. So I think it's dangerous, but it could be done in good faith.
Sure. I would say like if we're talking like real Christianity, I think it can't focus on race whatsoever, and also it's like you said, it's civic nationalism. It's ascribing to some ideals that a majority believes in and acts in their life. Okay, good answer. Thank you, Connor. What about you, Ryan?
Ryan? Yeah.
I don't think there's anything that like theoretically is incompatible between Christianity and nationalism. I think the question is normally phrased in terms of, is that compatible with like the American value system or the American experiment? And the answer then depends on how you're using the terms, because there's nothing in our system of government that is at all antithetical to people, not having a theocracy, but having a government that is informed by Christian ethical views. And in fact, I think we've never had anything other than a government that's informed by Christian ethical views.
Of course.
And the question is, to what extent do we want that, right? But there's nothing incompatible there. Where you start getting compatibility issues is if you start saying like, I would like to reimagine America as a theocracy. And and then you have actual compatibility issues. But in my experience, that's not what Christian nationalists are actually advocating for, though there are some who are. So
because
that extreme version, I think, would be a problem.
Sorry. I didn't want to cut you out. Yes, because like Christianity, the difference between Christianity and Muslims, Christianity respects the free will of people, right? And it's if we put the theocracy in, that goes against either the religion itself and the ideals of the nation that was created in. So
what's the value of bringing people to God if you do it at the point of a sword, right? Like the idea is that they need freedom of conscience to make the determination valuable.
This was the whole. I mean, this was the whole argument.
What if you're condemning them to hell through your lack of action, though? because that's often the Muslim argument, and it's also arguably like a Crusader argument, or the Portuguese argument in reference to colonialization, is effectively, if the people of the world do not hear the message of God, and if they're willing to basically prohibit you through violence of spreading the word of God, then they're condemning souls that could be saved to hell. And so it's your mission as a human being to aggressively advocate for the salvation of souls.
Yeah.
And so I think, we are, no offense to any deistic or theistic person or whatever, I think we're like ants trying to understand the nature of a human, in reference to like humans trying to understand the nature of God. So I think like a lot of this is mythology, and a lot of this is kind of like fluff. And hubris on the part of humans to try to pretend to understand the nature of God. But, I do understand the rationale of who is it? The Spanish conquering Central America. They might have been raping, murdering, and killing people.
Of course.
But then also force converting people to Christianity. But they might have justified it like, okay, we're doing a bunch of bad shit now, but generations of souls will be saved because we force converted these people into Christianity, which I know is not scriptural. I'm just saying that I could understand the motivation and understand it to be earnest.
And that's why I was trying to frame it as compatibility with the American project versus like in general, because obviously you can be a Christian imperialist colonialist kingdom. Like we have tons of examples of that historically. In the American conception, we had this unique founding where the ideas of Christianity were broadened to like the philosophical moral floor, as it were. Like, what is the minimum you need to believe in the American project? And the minimum was that there's a creator who vested us with unalienable rights, because it grounds the ethical framework in a metaphysic. And that works for deists, that works for Christians, that works for Jews, that worked for everybody at the founding. They all believed that. It was like the lowest common denominator of their beliefs. And that is incompatible, Connor, with like Christianity at the point of the sword. But like but that's more of an American thing than a broader historical thing.
And oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, Crusader Danny, that was a great question that you brought to us. Since we are wrapping soon, can you give us any final thoughts that you'd like to leave us with on this great question?
Or can we bring him on for the last podcast?
Yeah, let's do PPP before we wrap.
Last word.
We got 4 minutes. We'll make it work.
We've got 4 minutes. Crusader,
he can go first if he has a hard out.
I like 30 seconds. 30 seconds. I'll just say, like, there's going to be. I'll tell you guys to do some research in the types of colonization between, for example, Portugal. As a Portuguese guy, I know what I'm talking about. But like Portugal colonization, French colonization, Spanish colonization, and England colonization. There's a very different. We invested in the people that we invaded. We didn't like plunder them, etc., etc. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you, guys.
The reason why I think I might have brought up the Portuguese thing though is just because, at least in an English history class, I was told that the early Portuguese expeditions into Asia were fucking hardcore as shit. So like maybe you guys were nicer to the people after you conquered them, but that conquering phase was supposed to be pretty fucking hardcore.
I would love to go through with that with you, Connor. But yeah, that's in the future, whatever.
Excellent. Well, you're welcome to stick around and play the game if you'd like, Crusader. But in the meantime, let's give you some fake money for your call in. How much, gents? What are we thinking? Connor, Ryan?
Max amount. That was a great question.
What, for money? Yeah, give him
fake
750
money,
or 1,000. I loved it. And he's
1,000?
not a communist.
Well, that counts for a lot here in the marketplace of ideas, where, of course, communists
where
are
there is
allowed
a market, and therefore it's not communist.
There we go. Fantastic. We've got 1,000 Grift coin for Crusader Danny. Unfortunately, Magus, I see you in the waiting room. You've caught us at the very end of our show, and we are going to be closing out with a final round of Podcaster Prisoner President, where we have 3 more. I'm just going to go ahead and make the decision that we are going to be doing Star Wars for our last round, just to tie a nice bow on things.
Okay.
Hopefully you are well acquainted with the lore. If not, we could. Well, we've got, for our first name for the final round, We've got Prince Shizor, a deep cut from the Legends books, leader of the Black Sun Syndicate. In the middle, we've got Admiral Thrawn, a renowned war leader, very competent. And then finally, we've got kindly old Senator Palpatine, the only one here with any actual political experience.
I
Okay.
already know my answer too.
Yeah, I already do. Okay. Who goes first, by the way? Sorry.
Crusader Danny, you're a call-in, so please start us off here.
All right. Thank you. All right. So Gizor, if I'm 100% correct, is a crime lord, right? So
Very much so.
I don't like crime.
So he'll be a great
prisoner,
politician
yeah.
almost immediately.
No. Prisoner.
Indeed.
Admiral Thrawn, I would say president.
Okay,
Yeah.
a competent leader indeed.
Yes. And then Senator Palpatine is going to be a podcaster because he has a lot of stories to tell, guys. Let me tell you.
And I'm kind of regretful that we're not putting him in a position of president, since he does actually have political leader. But I'm sure his podcast will be benign and all. Oh my God. Oh geez. Does this? It would seem that Senator Palpatine has in fact been Darth Sidious this whole time, an evil Sith leader who is destined to take over the galaxy.
Who could have seen it coming?
Does this change your calculation at all?
No, thank God. Thank God he's a podcaster. I mean,
I guess,
Dude, you don't have to do mine because I'm with Crusader Danny. At least from what I understand, I haven't read the books, but Thrawn is like it's like isn't there like chaotic neutral, chaotic good, whatever it is? I forgot.
Dungeons and Dragons,
right?
Yeah, for
D&D
Dungeons and Dragons,
chart.
he's like ordered evil or whatever.
Yeah,
or something like that.
He would be lawful evil. Yes, very competent.
So he's like incredibly pragmatic. Does not make enemies when he doesn't need to make enemies. He actually believes in the Empire as a force of order in the galaxy. He tries to rule judiciously. He tries to bring his enemies over to his side. He tries to rule his imperial splinter with extreme competence. So I agree that he should be president. Then with Palpatine, I don't think there's any prison that could ever incarcerate him.
Yeah,
and he would probably just want to party and use his force powers for hookers and cocaine. So that could be entertaining. And then I don't know any of Caesar's lore, so unfortunately he ends up in prison.
And he's a criminal, so perfect.
Quite frankly, this is a perfect list. I can't disagree with anything on here. But if I'm just going to go down the Palpatine podcast a little bit more, what I'm imagining is, remember the Zach Galifianakis Between Two Ferns, where
glorious,
where the guest is in on it. I'm imagining a show where Palpatine tells stories that make it increasingly obvious that he's a Sith Lord, and the guest just never gets there, and just bring in different like Barack Obama sitting there. He's remember the time that the great Sith Master discovered the cure for cancer, and Barack Obama was like, "Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that story." Yeah,
not a story the Jedi would tell you.
I think it's a delightful podcast. Can't fuck with that.
It's not a story the Democrats would tell you.
Yes.
Oh, getting one last laugh in, James Vagabond. Well, what a great way to tie a bow on this episode. We have consensus for the final round of Podcaster Prisoner President, where we've got Sheev as a podcaster.
On nothing else today.
Yeah, if nothing else,
it had to be me. I mean,
Crusader Danny, you brought us all together at the end of the episode, and we greatly appreciate that. So thank you so much for calling in and helping us reach a much needed common ground on this show. We thank you so much, and we hope to see you again, sir.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Take care,
and to our guests, we have surpassed the time of outness by 3 minutes. We hope that we didn't disrupt your schedules or sleep hygiene too much. We greatly appreciate you joining us once again on the Marketplace of Ideas.
It was a blast.
Thanks, guys.
Excellent.
Good times we're had.